The ford of the Trident lay draped in bruised twilight, its waters rippling red with more than the reflection of a sinking sun. Rubies, dozens of them, glimmered like dragon glass across the shallows, each stone no bigger than a thumbnail, each a shard of a shattered coronet. They winked and rolled in the current where they had fallen from Prince Rhaegar Targaryen's armor. Yet the prince himself stood unbowed at the river's edge, visor lifted, cheeks spattered with drying blood that was not his own. Robert Baratheon lay some 10 paces distant, great antlered helm split, his warhammer half submerged in the mud, bronze chestplate caved in where Blackfire, Rhaegar's ashen silver longsword, had found its mark. Above, carrion crows wheeled in a sky bruised violet, and the mingled banners of Storm's End and Winterfell sagged in the failing wind, their bearers dead or fled. No horn sounded now, save the rasping croak of ravens gathering to the feast. Rhaegar's breath came slow, raw in his throat. Every inhalation tasted of iron. Every exhalation formed pale smoke that curled before his visor like the ghosts of songs half remembered. He had not imagined triumph would feel like this. So bleak, so hollow. Each heartbeat reverberated in his armor, a dull hammering against ribs already sore from battering strikes. Yet there he stood, alive where moments earlier he had courted death. He had dreamt of this day since the tourney at Harrenhal, and feared it in equal measure. His prophecies, his father's madness, Aerys' waning health, Lyanna's secret tears in the tower. They had converged, each thread knotting into a bloody skein. And now, with Robert Baratheon's rebellion cast down beneath the river's murmur, the skein lay in his hands like an infant swaddled in thorns. Ser Barristan Selmy reined up beside him, armor streaked with gore, white cloak rent at the hem. "Your Grace," he began, hesitated, corrected. "Your Highness. The battle is done." His voice carried awe and exhaustion in equal measure. Across the field, knights bearing Dragonstow's 3-headed standard were rounding prisoners, though there were fewer rebels left to capture than to bury. Lord John Connington rode among them, his ginger beard darkened with blood, shouting orders in hoarse triumph. Farther off, the remnants of Lord Stark's northern host retreated in ragged columns, their gray banner trailing like smoke in the dusk. Yet Eddard Stark himself knelt beside the fallen Baratheon, head bowed, fingers pressed to a lifeless throat. He looked, in that moment, older than any man of 23 had right to look. Rhaegar watched him. In another life perhaps they might have been friends. Eddard Stark had an iron in him, regard and mired, an austere nobility unmarred by vanity. But prophecy had no mercy for friendship. Destiny sketched its designs in blood. At last Rhaegar sheathed Blackfire, the blade rasping home like a final note in a dirge. "Have the wounded tended," he told Barristan, "and send a rider across the ford to Lord Stark. Offer him safe passage to treat with me at first light. There has been enough killing for one day." Barristan bowed in the saddle and wheeled away. Rhaegar remained where he was, staring into the river as though the dark water might answer questions that plagued him still. Somewhere downstream the rubies drifted out of sight, borne upon currents swift and indifferent. One small part of him mourned their loss. Another rejoiced that the river had claimed them. The prince had shed the jeweled trappings of prophecy as easily as scales from a molting serpent. Now only flesh remained, scarred, fallible, human. Night settled like a cold cloak, and campfires sprang up across both banks. The prince walked the lines, silent, save for quiet words of solace to dying men who reached for him with trembling gauntlets. He knelt beside a knight of Summerhall who begged after his son, kissed the brow of a squire coughing up pink froth, clasped the weathered hand of an archer from King's Landing who muttered a lover's name until muters faded into stillness. When dawn's first chill light arrived, Rhaegar's armor seemed cast from winter steel rather than polished nightfall. The rain began shortly thereafter. Gentle, cleansing, sympathetic to neither victor nor vanquished. No one. Eddard Stark spent the dark hours beside Robert's corpse, feeling the ground leach warmth from knees and palms alike. Memories came unbidden, laughter in the stone yard of Winterfell, the crash of training swords, Robert's booming voice promising a world of girls and wine and songs not yet written. "You wed my sister," Robert had declared 100 times, fist pounding Ned's shoulder hard enough to bruise. "7 hells. I'll make her a princess, you'll see." Ned's sister was gone now. Stolen, rumor said, by the very prince who strode through the rebel dead proclaiming mercy. And Robert, whose dreams spanned a kingdom, lay broken under leaden skies, eyes dulled, mouth fixed in a grimace that looked too small for so large a man. Around Ned the northern host whispered of vengeance, of one last charge, of dying with honor rather than bending the knee. Yet his duty to his men warred against the hollow quake in his chest. They were beaten. Storm's End had sent word that Mace Tyrell's reachmen encircled the castle. Stannis Baratheon could not break out nor brothers break in. The river lords who had risen with Jon Arryn were scattered. Father of the Vale fallen beneath Connington's lance at the crossroads. Only Ned's Northmen stood intact, weary and heartsore. Too many good men already lay wrapped in sodden cloaks. War, he told himself, is easier to start than to end. But surrender tasted of ash. When the Dragon Prince's envoy approached at sunrise, white banner in one hand, missive in the other, Ned accepted the parchment with fingers stiff from cold. The prince offered parley, terms honorable enough. Prisoners treated with courtesy, wounded tended by maesters of the Rock and Old Town alike, safe passage home for those who would forswear further rebellion. But there was no mention of Lyanna, no admission or denial of her fate. Ned felt the absence like a blade across his tongue. He sent the envoy back with one demand scrawled in cramped northern script. "Bring my sister to the parley, alive and unharmed, or there will be no parley." The rider returned by nightfall bearing a second letter. Within, the prince promised answers, but made no guarantees. Ned stared at the black wax seal long after the messenger departed. He heard rustling behind and turned to find Howland Reed, gaunt face streaked with mud, green eyes bright beneath reed-woven helm. "We can still strike at dusk," Howland said. "Cut our way to the prince's tent, or flee. There are paths through swamps the dragons know not." Ned's reply was a sigh more than a word. "I will go," he said, "alone if need be. If Lyanna lives, I must see her. If she is dead." He could not finish. He thought of Winterfell's crypts, of a cairn beneath towering kings. He thought of his father's bones still swinging from mad King Aerys' walls. A snowy wind off the north seemed to pass through him, though summer still clung to the south. "When I return," he told Howland, "we decide. War or peace, but not before." Now, Elbot. King's Landing simmered under heavy clouds the color of pewter, its stench sharp enough to curl milk in the churn. News of the Trident had raced ahead of ravens. Robert slain, rebels routed, traitor Lord Stark and Arryn soon to bend the knee. Small folk pressed shoulder to shoulder along Fishmonger's Square, peering up at the Red Keep's ramparts where dragon banners snapped like tongues of flame. Yet true flame lingered only in rumor. King Aerys II had not set the city alight as he once threatened, though wildfire caches still slumbered beneath cobbles and cellars. Some whispered that the king's pyromancers prepared casks even now, ready at a breath to turn hovel and hold fast alike into emerald hell. Others claimed Prince Rhaegar would arrive in triumph and drag his father from the Iron Throne. For the prince's mercy was legend, and the king's madness notorious. In the Tower of the Hand, Lord Connington strode across polished marble, crimson cloak swirling behind. He had outpaced his own riders to deliver news in person, leaving Barristan Selmy to see the prisoners march south. He found Grand Maester Pycelle in council with Lord Varys. The eunuch's powdered face betrayed nothing. Pycelle's white whiskers trembled at Connington's recounting. "Robert is dead," Connington finished, "and his stormlords broken. Lord Stark will yield once the prince confronts him with proof of the realm's strength." "A mournful day," Varys said, voice as soft as cat fur. "The realm bleeds, yet at last the wound may close. Provided, of course, we dress it gently." Connington spat. "Gently? Too gentle is how we came to bleed. Had his grace listened to reason months ago, there would have been no rebellion." Pycelle lifted heavy eyelids. "The king will rejoice at your tidings. Still, We must pray his joy is tempered with prudence." The maester's fingers played with a parchment weighted by a stone figurine of Giscar. Connington wondered what fresh counsel the pair conspired. He trusted neither. But the prince would soon reach the city, and with him the king's guard, whose oaths were older than any spider's plot. "Where is his grace now?" he demanded. Varys' smile broadened. "In the throne room, I believe, conversing with his alchemists." The eunuch's scent, lavender and dust, followed as Connington hurried away. He found Aerys seated upon the iron throne, gaunt hands gripping barbs of blackened steel, nail beds crusted with dried blood where he had cut himself anew. The king's silver-gold beard had grown ragged, his once lustrous hair patchy as a molting horse. Sir Jaime Lannister stood at the base of the throne, white cloak pristine, expression curdled with restrained disgust. When Connington knelt, Aerys' eyes, pale and fever-bright, fixed on him like twin moons. "My son lives," the king croaked, voice thin as parchment. "Tell me he lives." "He lives, your grace, and your foes are vanquished." Aerys sagged back, relief and something darker mingling. "Good," he whispered. "Good." Then louder, "Bring me Lord Tywin, send ravens. We shall have a feast, a wedding." "Yes, yes, a wedding." His gaze shifted, unfocused. "The dragon must have 3 heads, and the realm 3 fires. One to warm, one to light, one to cleanse." Connington exchanged a glance with Jaime. The king's layer's emerald eyes glinted beneath his gilded mane. Words were not spoken, yet an understanding passed like cold water between them. The king's wits had flown farther than any raven. And now, Rhaegar reached the capital 3 days later beneath a sky rinsed clean by rain. He rode astride a pale gray courser, armor polished, cloak of midnight silk trailing, though his brow bore no coronet. Behind him came the shards of rebellion. Lords fell, and Grandison bound with golden chains. Banners of the stag and falcon dragged in mire. Yet he did not display the prisoners through the bustling streets. The wound to the realm's pride was deep enough. Instead, he summoned Barristan ahead to escort wounded foes to the dragon pit, where healers waited. Crowd murmurs followed it as he passed, some whispers fearful, others adoring. "The realm's beloved prince," someone cried. "Rhaegar the Just." Others muttered of Lyanna Stark, of prophecy, of bastards born beneath bleeding stars. The city's gossip never slept. At the Red Keep gates, Jaime Lannister led the king's guard in greeting, his helm under one arm, golden hair bright in the courtyard's pale light. He bowed low as Rhaegar dismounted. "Your Highness," he said, voice edged in something Rhaegar could not name. Resentment, relief, perhaps both. "His grace awaits within." "And my lady mother?" "Princess Elia rests in Maker's Holdfast," Jaime replied. "Her grace the queen mother died last moon." His tone softened. "The babe is strong." "Prince Aegon grows every day." Rhaegar nodded, heart lurching at mention of Elia. He had left her fragile, weary, and yet still. But Lyanna's image flickered unbidden, laughing beneath Winterfell's blossoms, moonlight on a pool, whispers of blue roses. Duty warred within him like twin dragons gnashing for flesh. He pushed the thought aside and followed Jaime up the serpentine steps. The throne room doors opened upon darkness broken by wildfire-green torches. Aerys sat upon steel, but the sight shocked even Rhaegar. His father had wasted to a husk, robes hanging like funeral wrappings, nails long and cracked, eyes sunken. Beside the throne loomed red-robed pyromancers, their foxtail beards scented with sulfur. One held a silver vial that smoked at the lip. Aerys' smile split his face, feral and wide as the Blackwater rush. "My son," he rasped. "My dragon, come again?" He lurched to stand. Iron spikes hooked his robe, tearing silk. Fresh blood welled where blades bit flesh, yet he seemed not to feel it. "Did you burn them all?" Rhaegar halted midway across the hall. Cold pinched his spine. "I brought peace, father, not ashes." Madness flickered like wildfire in Aerys' gaze. "Peace. Peace is the lull before betrayal." Tyrell's whispers sweet, Lannister's smile, Baratheon's roar. They all hunger for my throne. He lifted the smoking vial, letting green vapor curl. But let them come. I have a dragon of my own. Da. The pyromancer bowed, offering the vial to Rhaegar, as if presenting wine. The prince did not move. Enough, father, he said quietly. The war is done. Let the realm heal. Aerys's bony fist clenched. The realm is mine to heal or set ablaze. I am the king. His voice cracked, a whip in a mausoleum. Then suddenly he sagged, dizzy, like a marionette with strings cut. Jaime stepped forward, but Rhaegar raised a palm, and the young Kingsguard froze. Silence stretched until the torches hissed louder than breaths. Father, Rhaegar said at last, each word careful as stepping stones across molten glass. Rest. I will convene the small council. We shall plan feasts, reparations, a tourney of reconciliation. Reconciliation? Aerys laughed, a sound wetter than blood in lungs. You speak treason, son. Your council reeks of plots. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. He remembered the tales of wildfire casks, hidden beneath the Sept of Baelor, the guild hall of the alchemists, beneath Flea-Bottom's warrens. He imagined the city rising in emerald flame. I have never plotted against you, he said. I seek only the good of the people. They are filth, Aerys hissed. Filth to burn that my reign be pure. His eyes darted to Jaime, then back to Rhaegar. But perhaps you, my shining dragon. Perhaps you can be fire made flesh. He extended the vial. Drink. Prove yourself unburnt. A hush fell. Jaime's sword rasped an inch free before slipping back. Rhaegar felt the weight of 7,000 eyes. Courtiers, guards, servants, though none but the king and the pyromancers stood near. To drink wildfire was death. Even Targaryen blood could not tame such flame. Yet refusal might tip his father to further madness. He reached out, not for the vial but for his father's wrist. Come with me, he said softly. Leave this chair, this hall. Let us walk the gardens and breathe clean air. We can speak of Viserys' lessons, of Aegon's first words. His grip was gentle, yet firm. Let us be father and son. Aerys trembled. For a moment, light returned to clouded eyes. Then he jerked away, tripping on a step. The vial fell, shattering upon iron. Green fire spitting, but quickly doused by sand that scurried from recesses of the throne. Pyromancers dove, scattering. Aerys shrieked, delicate as a child's cry, and crumpled back into the chair's maw. Blood streaked his ankles, where blades bit anew. Rhaegar straightened. Send for Grand Maester Pycelle, he ordered, and see that the king is tended. His voice carried no question. Guards obeyed before thought. He turned and strode from the hall, leaving his father to the throne's cold embrace. Above, torches guttered, smoke curling like wings across vaulted stone. And now, far to the south, where dawn painted the Dornish sky the color of ripe apricots, Lyanna Stark paced the mosaic floor of the Tower of Joy. 7 slender towers ringed a court of pale stone, a place of memories borrowed from song. She wore loose linen dyed sky blue, her feet bare upon cool tile. 3 Kingsguard stood sentinel outside. Sir Arthur Dayne with Dawn at his hip, Sir Oswell Went, and Sir Gerald Hightower. They were courteous captors, if captors at all. Arthur spoke to her of Winterfell's snows. Oswell teased her with riddles. Gerald listened when nightmares shook her from sleep. Yet she felt the tower walls tighten daily, a noose of quiet dread. The babe in her belly kicked, lively as a wolf pup, and she pressed a palm to the swell beneath cloth. 8 moons gone, Maester's count. Soon, she thought of Rhaegar, of promises whispered beneath weirwood boughs, of prophecies tangled around them like wild vines. He would come for her, he said, when the world was safe. But what if the world never was? From a high window she watched desert hawks ride thermals, free of vows and crowns. She envied them. That morning, Arthur Dayne entered unhelmeted, violet eyes solemn. News from the Trident, he said, and told her the tale. Robert slain, rebellion crushed, the prince victorious. Relief washed her, warm, appalling in its intensity. Yet memory of her brother Ned rose, flinty and fierce. Would Stark blood accept Targaryen victory? She asked Arthur what would become of Eddard. He will bend the knee, the Sword of the Morning answered. Your prince is merciful. But mercy had many shapes. Her child stirred again. Lyanna gazed beyond the lattice to where mountains purpled against sky. Snow never touched these peaks, yet she shivered. When does Rhaegar ride south, she asked. Soon, my lady. Arthur's voice softened. I believe he longs for nothing more. He hesitated. It may be that you journey north instead, once matters in the city are settled. North. Dight. To Winterfell, with a Targaryen babe suckling at her breast? She imagined her father's stern brow, Ned's quiet outrage, Robert's ghost howling betrayal. Tears gathered. Hot. She blinked them away before the Sword of the Morning could see. Songs lie, she said. All of them. Arthur inclined his head. Whether in agreement or courtesy she could not tell. Cersei Lannister stood upon a sunlit balcony of Casterly rock, sea wind whipping golden hair around cheeks flushed by anger. Ravens had brought the trident's tidings at dawn. Robert dead, rebels broken, the dragon triumphant. The news struck like ice, plunged into her spine, then melted into something molten and curdling. A dream she dared not voice had nested in her heart since childhood. To wed Prince Rhaegar, to ride beside him like a blazing sun. But Aerys had joined her to Robert's fate. She almost to Robert, rather. Only for war, to break bonds before they formed. Now Robert lay rotting in river mud, and Rhaegar returned to a frail Dornish wife whose pulse fluttered like moth wings. Ser Jaime's letters grew scarce, laden with cryptic hints of madness behind the Red Keep's walls. Father watched events with cool detachment, gauging profit in every tremor. Yet Cersei felt a storm gathering, and storms demanded queens to master them. She traced a finger along the balcony's marble balustrade, imagining how red it would look splashed across stone. Perhaps opportunity had not passed, merely changed shape. She turned from the sea, skirts whispering, and descended to her father's solar. Tywin Lannister looked up from maps of grain levies. His green eyes studied her with the practiced detachment he reserved for ledger columns. She spoke without preamble. Send me to King's Landing. He paused, quill poised like a dagger. For what purpose? To serve the queen or the prince? The realm will need strong hands to rebuild. She let the words linger, confident in her poise. Tywin set the quill aside. I will decide where Lannister hands are best employed, he said. The king has not yet called upon our aid. Cersei bristled. He will. He always does. Tywin's gaze flicked to her waist, measuring heirs unborn. When he does, we shall proceed. Until then, you are safest here. Safe. She almost spat the word. Safety was a cage of gilded iron. She wanted the Red Keep's marble floors beneath her slippered feet, its shadowed corridors alive with secrets ripe for plucking. She wanted power to bend destinies. Above all, she wanted to stand at Rhaegar's side when crowns were forged anew. She left the solar with hands curled into fists, nails crescenting palms. Hear me, gods, she prayed. Make me queen and I will burn incense villages whatever you desire. Oh. Night in King's Landing carried the reek of tanneries, fish guts, and smoky torches. Rhaegar stood upon a balcony overlooking the city's webs of light, each lantern a fragile star trembling in the dark. Elia slept in the chamber behind, her breathing shallow, her skin the hue of parchment. Aegon and little Rhaenys nestled with wet nurses in the Dornish wing. He loved them, wives, children, each a chord in his heart's music, but prophecy tugged still. The song of ice and fire had not ended with victory. It began anew. Dragons planting seed in wolf soil. Pyres glimpsed in dreams where snowflakes hissed to steam. He thought of Lyanna alone in a tower far to the south, belly round, eyes bright with fear and hope. He must bring her north. Must mend the breach with House Stark. Must quell his father's fury and the realm's doubts. He must be prince and peacekeeper, father and husband, dreamer and warrior. All things at once, or be broken by the weight. Below, the Red Keep's courtyards bustled with preparations. Maesters tending wounded, smiths reforging blades, scribes drafting pardons. At dawn he would meet Eddard Stark beneath the Dragon Gate, bearing Robert's hammer as token of his honesty. He would speak truth. That Lyanna lived, that she bore his child, that he loved her. But how to frame love against the backdrop of abduction? The North would call it rape, no matter his words. Honor might demand steel. A flutter of wings interrupted. A raven landed upon the balustrade. Scroll tied to its leg. Rhaegar untied the cord. Wax unbroken bore the seal of Tower of Joy. Arthur Dayne's raven. He broke the seal. Words were few but heavy as a smith's hammer. Lyanna is well. Child quickens. She grows restless. We await your word. Signed by 3 white swords. Rhaegar closed his eyes. Restless. So was the realm. He summoned parchment and quill, dipped point in ink eye. His reply unfurled like cautious melody. Hold. I come soon. Protect her. Protect the child. By the 7, let no harm befall them. When the raven flew, he lingered. Clouds rolled above like dark tide. Screening stars. Somewhere beneath those clouds Ned Stark camped with grief and suspicion gnawing. Rhaegar vowed to face him with open palms, yet he understood too well the hunger revenge could stoke. Only truth, he prayed, would set Ned's heart at ease. Yet truth, he knew, could be barbed as any lance. A footfall sounded behind. Barristan Selmy bowed low. Forgive intrusion, my prince. The king demands audience. He is unsettled. Rhaegar exhaled. Have Grand Maester Pycelle prepare moon tea and dream wine. Already done, Barristan said. But his grace refuses drink. Then have Sir Jaime stand watch and send. I will come presently. He rubbed lids that burned. Another matter. Barristan hesitated. Word from Storm's End. Lord Stannis will not yield. Rhaegar allowed himself a weary laugh. Stannis would not yield if the stranger himself led a host of whites upon his gate. He sobered. Send a raven offering honorable terms. If he refuses, we shall starve him, not storm him. The realm has had its fill of slaughter. Barristan nodded and withdrew. Alone again, Rhaegar gripped the balustrade until knuckles blanched. Below, lanterns flickered in a gust, and for an instant he imagined wildfire's emerald glow consuming the city. He tasted ash on his tongue. Father, he thought, please, let madness pass like storm. Let dawn come gentle. Now, dawn 3 leagues north of the city painted the camp of House Stark in colors of mourning. Eddard rode through ranks stripped of heraldry, save simple gray cloaks, as though color itself were an arrogance they could no longer claim. At the Dragon Gate Rhaegar waited with 2 companions only, Barristan Selmy and Luwin Martell. No lances bristled, no archers crouched upon the walls. The prince wore no crown, only a plain cloak fastened by a silver wolf brooch. Ned's breath caught at the sight. They met upon hard earth. Rhaegar bowed, not from his saddle but upon one knee. Lord Stark, he said loudly enough for both entourages to hear, I grieve for your loss. Robert Baratheon was a man of passion and valor. Ned dismounted, mud sucking at boots. Your grief costs him little. Rhaegar accepted the barb. Rising, he gestured to a bundle borne by Luwin. Robert's warhammer, haft splintered, bronze dented. I return his hammer, Rhaegar said. Let it lie in Storm's End's crypts or Dragonstone's halls. He earned remembrance. Ned took the weapon, weight staggering. The hammer smelled of river and rust and marrow. Words jammed behind teeth. My sister, he forced. Where is she? Alive. Rhaegar wanted nothing more than to say. Yet, simplicity fled him. Safe, he answered. South, in Dorne's mountains, where neither war nor winter can touch her. Ned's eyes narrowed to storm-gray slits. Dorne? You hid her beneath the spears of Sunspear while kingdoms burned. Many. I sheltered the woman I love from my father's wrath, Rhaegar said. What name the songs give our tale matters less than her safety. Songs be damned, Ned hissed. His hand tightened on the hammer's haft. You stole her. Rhaegar's gaze did not waver. I asked. She chose. Silence bristled. Let me bring you to her. Judge with your own eyes. Behind Ned, 100 northern swords rasped half-drawn. Behind Rhaegar, only Selmy's white cloak stirred. The prince unclasped the wolf brooch and held it out. Palm up. My pledge, he said. By the old gods and the new, no harm will touch Lyanna. Nor you, nor any man who lays down arms this day. Ned stared at the brooch, at the lone man offering it. In that instant, he saw not dragon or crown, but weary resolve. Yet honor thrummed in his blood. If you lie, he said, the north will march until the wall cracks. If I lie, Rhaegar answered, may dragons devour me. He closed Ned's fingers around the brooch. Somewhere a lark sang, absurd in the hush. Decision lingered, fragile. Ned lifted his gaze to camps beyond. Ragged spearmen whose bellies rumbled. Boys grown gray with exhaustion. Friends yearning for hearthfires. He thought of his father's bones, of Lyanna's laughter, of snow falling on the godswood pond. At length, Eddard Stark inclined his head. Show me my sister. And so the door opened, just a crack, in the wall of war. Neither man knew what furies might flood through, nor what futures might be forged in that narrow light. Yet for the first time since rubies splashed into river shallows, the realm could taste the faint, tentative flavor of peace. And now, high above, crows still circled the trident, their feast interrupted only by the midday sun. Rubies nestled amid river stones, each one catching light, each a frozen spark of prophecy untold. In the current's hush, they whispered secrets to minnows about kings and queens unborn, about fires that would yet consume the night and snows that would drown the world. The river carried those secrets ever downstream, past willow and whispering rush, toward a horizon none could yet imagine, save perhaps a prince with haunted eyes and a wolf girl pacing a lonely tower. In dreams, they met beyond tides of blood, their hands outstretched, child between them, as the song of ice and fire began its slow, inexorable descent into history. Dawn seeped through thin gray clouds, illuminating the Dragon Gate where Rhaegar and Ned Stark stood once more. This time surrounded by a hush so profound, it seemed the very stones strained to listen. They had spoken through the night beneath tent canvas and candle gutters, haggling not over ransoms or castles, but over vows and bones and what place truth might claim inside the scaffolding of peace. At last they struck a fragile accord. Ned would ride with a modest retinue. Howland Reed, Lord Wylot Manderley, young Jory Castle, and 20 sworn shields, no more. Rhaegar would match the number. Sir Barristan, Sir Luwin, 3 gold cloaks of impeccable record, 19 riders from the crownlands whose loyalty he swore by his children's lives. The rest, thousands of swords on both banks, would remain camped under strict orders to light no torches, raise no horns, provoke no quarrel until their lords returned. A single spark could immolate everything they hoped to mend. A chill wind drifted off the Blackwater, hinting of autumn, though the calendar yet clung to summer. Ned adjusted the wolf brooch at his cloak. The silver had warmed against his skin during the night, a small strange comfort. He watched Rhaegar confer quiet instructions to Barristan. There was grace in the prince's bearing, but beneath it Ned sensed exhaustion, as though 12 years' worth of wars had hammered him in half as many months. Yet determination smoldered bright in violet irises. When Rhaegar slid into the saddle, the gray courser stamped once and settled, as if acknowledging the gravity of its burden. They set out through the gate before the sun cleared the eastern bastion. 16 banners once meant to trumpet stark defiance rode furled, their poles bare save frayed cords. The dragon standards did not fly either, And so the procession looked less an honor guard than a band of pilgrims seeking solitude. They rode east along the King's Road, skirting fields trampled by hooves, through villages gutted for war's appetite, past orchards where fruit hung worm-eaten because no small folk remained to pick it. Sometimes folk emerged, gaunt men, hollow-eyed women clutching babes, to gape at armed nobles passing without pillage. Rhaegar ordered coin and bread left at each door. Ned watched, surprised by neither command nor the mild gratitude it received. Hunger blunts hatred more surely than edicts. They made camp that night near the tumbling ruins of an abandoned sept. Rain hissed in grass, soft yet relentless, painting cloaks a dull slit. Rhaegar took the first watch beside Ned's cookfire, though Selmy protested. The prince only smiled. "I have stood in council enough. Let me stand beneath real sky." Ned's men kept their distance, whispering wolf-low about dragon tricks. But Howland Reed squatted unasked at the flames, peeling bark from a birch limb with his frog spear's obsidian edge. Smoke drifted between the three men, mingling scents of wet pine and broth. "You speak of prophecy like scripture," Ned said, after a silence stretched taut. "Yet prophecies break more oaths than they bind. My father heeded none, and Winterfell prospered." Rhaegar's gaze held the fire. "Your father did not dream the doom devouring his kin. I did." The words escaped, softer than falling ash. "When I was but a boy, I read of Valyria's fall and wept till dawn. That cataclysm began with old sorcerers sacrificing truth to hubris. I swore never to follow their path. But dreams hunted me anyway." Howland's knife paused. "Dreams can lead to wisdom," he murmured. "Or to the next peat bogs where corpses sink forever. Difference lies in how steady one's step." "Shower." Rhaegar inclined his head. "A lesson I learn daily." Ned exhaled steam. "Tell me one thing. Did you love her before or after the dream?" "I scarcely know which came first," Rhaegar admitted. "They converged, like two rivers bound for the same sea." "Rivers flood," Ned said. "Or irrigate," Howland countered. Rhaegar offered Ned a wineskin. He drank sparingly, handed it back. "If she wishes to return north," Ned said, voice measured, "I will carry her on my shield myself." "And I will walk beside," Rhaegar vowed. They slept at last, all save the sentries, as rain whispered of fragile truces. Morning brought mist and the sweet rot stench of mushrooms bursting from fallen logs. They rode hard. Hawks wheeled overhead, their screeches chasing off uneasy silence. Midday, a scattered grove opened onto fields where stalks of corn bowed low, black with mildew. There, trouble found them. A band of ragged spearmen emerged from hedgerows. 40, perhaps 50, sporting crudely overpainted shields whose charging boar emblems oozed under rain. Rhaegar raised a hand. The company slowed. "Stormlanders," Barristan muttered. Their leader, a scar-faced man in rusted mail, patched with boiled leather, strode forth clutching a pike. "Yield the silver prince," he bellowed, "for Robert's ghost and Storm's end's honor." Voices behind him cheered raggedly, but their eyes flicked to stark colors. Though hidden, rumor still pegged them. Ned urged his Garin forward. "Robert is fallen," he called, "and these men ride under truce." "Stand aside," the scarred man spat. "Truce? With the butcher of the trident? He slew our lord, hell die in kind." The pike lifted. Archers knocked barbed shafts. Rhaegar dismounted, stepping into the puddled road unarmed, save for a dagger at his belt. "Do I look butcher?" he asked. "Your quarrel ended 3 days past. The realm bleeds. Will you water the wound with more?" "You speak soft, dragon," the rebel sneered, though uncertainty flickered. "Yet soft words won't mend dead friends." Rhaegar removed the dagger, reversed it, offered hilt first. "Then strike me. If killing one man eases grief, take my life and spare those who'd fight to protect me." Barristan stiffened. Ned's hand flew to pommel. Rain ticked upon mail links like anxious fingers. The rebels shuffled. One archer loosed a shaft. It thudded into muck at Rhaegar's foot, quivering. The prince did not flinch. Instead he knelt, palms open. The scarred man stared, mouth working. Eventually he lowered the pike. "I can't kill a kneeling man," he rasped. He shoved the weapon away, voice cracking. "Go then, but leave us coin for graves." Rhaegar rose, nodded. Barristan produced a purse heavy with stags. The men melted into drizzle, their anger leached by a kinglier currency. "Mercy." Ned rode beside Rhaegar afterward. Shaken. "You risk too much," he said, but the criticism lacked heat. "Not risk," Rhaegar replied. "Investment." That night, Barristan voiced what others kept mute. "You surrendered lives of loyal men to chance," he said while they supped on trout. "One arrow true, and the realm devolves again." Rhaegar wiped broth from his chin. "Courage untested is coin uncirculated. Let them see what sort of king I intend." "If you live to be crowned," Selmy countered, but said no more. On the fifth day, the cinnamon ridges of the Dornish marches rose, jagged under a haze that smelled of sage and distant sea. Rock outcrops slashed the sky like broken dragon teeth. At dusk they reached Prince's Pass, narrow and steep. There, Dornish outriders awaited under banners sun and spear. The captain, slim and sun-browned, greeted Rhaegar with hand to heart. "My lady mother Princess Elia sent word," Rhaegar told Ned. "Her kin provide escort." Ned eyed the pass. Walls of ochre stone funneling travelers into arrow range. "Comforting," he murmured, but followed. 2 days more, they wound through switchbacks. Hooves clattering on shale. The air grew thin, flavored with rosemary. At last, as sunset bled violet across peaks, the Tower of Joy appeared. A ring of 7 slender spires, encircling a courtyard of pale pink stone, perched upon a plateau like a crown upon a brow. Torches flickered along battlements. White cloaks rippled in the wind. The sight jolted Ned. In dreams such towers often signaled ending, yet he felt beginnings coil inside him. They clopped across the outer yard, where Arthur Dane, Oswell Went, and Gerald Hightower awaited helmless, armored, in mirror-bright steel. Dane's lavender eyes briefly flickered to the Stark banner. Grey direwolf newly unfurled, a gesture Rhaegar insisted upon before the last mile. Then fixed on his prince. "My sword and life, your highness," he said, voice a desert evening. Cool, promising hidden heat. "And mine," echoed Went. "And mine," Hightower intoned. Rhaegar dismounted. "You have guarded honor itself," he said. "I thank you as son, father, and husband." He motioned Ned forward. Steel rasped as Hightower's brow furrowed. But Rhaegar's upraised palm halted protest. "Lord Eddard comes in peace to see his sister." Dane inclined his head, but tension hung tangible. Inside the central tower's antechamber, torches breathed orange upon frescoes of Nymeria's voyage. Maester Marwyn of Old Town emerged. Silver chain glinting. "She labors, my prince," he murmured. "Long, but child's heart beat strong. She asks for you." Ned's knees weakened. He followed Rhaegar up winding stairs that smelled of lavender oil and sweat. Each step echoed louder than the last. They entered a modest solar transformed into birthing chamber. Rushes strewn with mint, braziers warming air, linens folded atop a cedar chest. Lyanna lay half-sitting among pillows, hair damp against temples, eyes blazing like winter stars. A midwife dabbed her brow. At sight of Ned she broke into tears and laughter in a single sound. "Ned," she whispered. He knelt, grasped her hand. Her grip felt feverish and fierce. "You look old." She teased between ragged breaths. "So do you," he managed, voice thick. Rhaegar hovered beside, gaze luminous. Lyanna turned to him. "Took you long enough, Silver Prince. Your speeches cost me hours." Pain contorted her face. She bore down, a scream ripping free. The midwife urged rhythm. Ned watched helpless, heart thundering. Night deepened. 2 candles guttered, replaced by fresh. Outside, Arthur Dane paced the corridor. Barristan leaned against stone, humbly guarding a woman who in another life might have been a hostage. Howland muttered Crannog prayers. Hours crawled. Rhaegar fed Lyanna crushed ice, murmured songs of old Valyria. Ned dabbed her wrist with cool cloth. Near dawn, a cry different from Lyanna's pierced the air. Thin, fluting, alive. The midwife lifted a squirming form slick with birth call. "A boy?" she declared. Relief crashed through Ned like a wave. Lyanna collapsed back, laughing and weeping. Rhaegar kissed her damp brow, tears streaking his cheeks. The child coughed, wailed louder. Tiny fists flailed. The midwife cleaned him, swaddled in soft blue wool. Rhaegar received the bundle reverently, as though holding prophecy incarnate. He presented the infant to Ned. "Your nephew," he said. "Aegon? Or perhaps something of the north?" "Then how?" Lyanna half turned, eyes shining. "His name will bridge houses," she said. "Jon for father. Jaehaerys for dragons older than madness." "Jon Jaehaerys. Jon Snow," Ned whispered. Instinctively, a secret half formed. He met Rhaegar's eyes. Understanding passed. Sorrowful, determined. For a moment Ned glimpsed a future where this babe united wolf and dragon, as easily as his fingers curled around Rhaegar's thumb. Yet shadows lurked. Aerys' wildfire, bannermen thirsting for vengeance, whispers of abduction too juicy to forget. Lyanna drifted to sleep, pulse steady. Maester Marwyn examined mother and babe, declared both strong. Rhaegar insisted Ned rest, but stark duty gnawed. He retired only after ensuring Howland and Jory stood guard within earshot. Ned woke midday to muffled argument in the yard below. He strapped sword to hip and descended. Hightower and Barristan faced one another, voices taut. Hightower gestured skyward. "King sent Raven last night," the White Bull growled. "Commands the prince return with you and the child at once." Rhaegar's voice cut in, calm steel. "My father commands much, Tor. I will return when mother and child can endure travel." Bah! Hightower's jaw set. "Sir Jaime writes the king refuses bread and water, speaks of cleansing the capital in dragonfire." Barristan glanced at Ned. "Lord Tywin has brought his host to the city's walls. He pledges to defend the king yet requests entry. Varys counsels acceptance." Ned absorbed the news. Tywin at the gates, wildfire in cellars, a mad king upon iron spikes. Peace felt like spun glass balanced on a beggar's palm. "You must ride," he said to Rhaegar. "If Aerys burns the city, tens of thousands die." Rhaegar looked north across Ochre Peaks, as though he could see the distant Blackwater gleaming. "I will go," he said, "but not alone. Lyanna travels under guard to Sunspear, then White Harbor by ship. Dornish water caravels can outrun any warcog." Ned frowned. "Too slow. Winter currents." "Then you will carry her," Rhaegar said. "Stark honor may shield her better than dragons." He placed a hand upon Ned's shoulder. "Bring her north. Raise Jon in Winterfell if that is her wish. When the realm is calm, the truth can surface like dawn." Eyes hardened. "If I fail, tell him who he is meant to be." Howland Reed produced a folded parchment, sealed with dark red wax dot. "A contingency," he murmured. Rhaegar pressed his signet into the seal. A dragon and wolf entwined. "These are my acknowledged rights for Jon," he told Ned. "Keep them hidden till safe to reveal." Arthur Dane knelt, dawn-forged sword laid flat. "Then I ride with you, my prince." "And I," Oswell declared. "No," Rhaegar answered. "You three remain. Guard Lyanna should shadows follow." Dane's protest died in his eyes, replaced by somber acceptance. "Then dawn is yours to wield," he said. But Rhaegar shook his head. "I have Blackfire. Keep dawn. A guard without sword is message enough. We stay for vows, not violence." By nightfall, the small company divided. Ned oversaw preparations, litters, seasoned garons, stores of goat cheese and dried figs. Lyanna, waking, consented though tears glistened. Back to snows already, she whispered, stroking Jon's cheek. He will know winter before summer's end. It will make him strong, Ned assured. They embraced long. Rhaegar entered, carrying a silver amulet shaped like a three-headed wolf. For Jon, he said. When dawn crimsoned the desert, two processions departed. One northbound along Prince's Pass bearing a mother, infant and dreams wrapped in wool. The other east toward King's Landing bearing a prince, his sword, and the last hope to cage wildfire. Wind tugged banners. In each rider's mind churned silent reckonings. Of debts named and unspoken. Of corridors where honor and necessity meet to drink uneasy wine. King's Road miles blurred under Rhaegar's hooves. Barristan rode at his shoulder, Luwin slightly behind, face shadowed by disbelief that his sister Elia might soon mourn or rejoice, depending on court's whimsy. Sparse ravens flapped overhead, ominous. On the second dusk, they met refugees fleeing the capital. Small folk hauling carts piled with mattresses, turnip sacks, weeping babes. King said, "We're traitors." One man sobbed, bruises dark on his jaw. "Hell burn us all." Rhaegar pressed coin into cracked palms, raced on. The air itself felt brittle, each breath flavored with sulfur even leagues away. On the third morning they reached the outskirts of the city and saw what fear had wrought. Tents studding fields like pustules, each containing souls expelled to make room for Tywin's encamped legions. Lannister crimson shimmered beneath early sun. Siege towers rose like skeletal giants. Trumpets from the walls answered with desperate bravado. Rhaegar rhined before massive oak gates barred by iron crossbeams. Gold cloaks manned merlons, gaze wary. One captain recognized the prince, eyes widening. Yet he shouted, "King's order, no one enters." Barristan raised visor. "Stand aside. Prince of Dragonstone commands it." "King outranks prince," the man replied, throat bobbing. Rhaegar saw terror there. Terror of something behind those walls more than of swords outside. From within the gatehouse echoed a shriek. High, manic, echoing like steel scraped on slate. Rhaegar's blood chilled. "Open," he called, voice imbued with a force that shook air. The gate did not budge. A horn blast sounded behind. Tywin Lannister himself approached, flanked by plate-clad honor guard. Golden lion sigil. Polished bright, cold satisfaction in his pale eyes. "Prince Rhaegar," he greeted. "The city denies our entry, though we pledge its defense." Rhaegar regarded the towering walls, the locked gate, the tension crackling. "Lord Tywin," he said evenly, "your aid is welcome, but I must calm my father first." "Or depose him," Tywin answered blandly. Rhaegar said nothing. Lannister's gaze slid toward distant spires. "The pyromancers have moved wildfire casks beneath the city's granaries. My spies saw wagons last night." "Then?" Barristan cursed under breath. "He means to starve survivors." "Unless we prevent," Tywin said. "Grant me leave, I can scale walls at Muddy Gate within the hour. The city will fall to us, and your claim insured." Rhaegar measured Tywin's poise, each syllable weighed like coin. Did he crave rescue or regency? Yet the clock ticked in unseen fuse. He dismounted, whispered to Barristan. The Lord Commander spurred off toward Tywin's siege works. "Gather ladders," Rhaegar told him. "But stand ready, not yet." Rhaegar walked alone to the gate, drew Blackfire. Sunlight licked the Valyrian ripples. "Hear me, men of the gold cloaks," he shouted. "I am Rhaegar, firstborn of Aerys, heir to the Iron Throne. By the laws your oaths uphold, you answer to me as you answer to king. Open these gates, and no harm shall come." The wall remained mute. Then a figure appeared above. The commander, perhaps. He clutched a torch. Green flame licked its tip. Wildfire. "Back, traitor," he cried. "The king will purify." Rhaegar raised Blackfire in salute. "Look to your heart, sir. You know my father's mind is clouded. Must his madness damn you? Bah. The man's arm trembled. Finally he lowered the torch, turning. Rhaegar held breath. Minutes dragged. Hinges shrieked. One leaf edged open, enough for a man. Rhaegar strode inside. Barristan beside him now, Luwin at rear. Torchbearers lit the tunnel, wildfire green trapped in glass orbs. The prince inhaled ash, sweat, fear. Stone corridors reverberated with distant bellows, Aerys shouting doused with hysteria, or some other agony. They hurried upward, past scullions kneeling in dread, past pyromancers scuttling like roaches carrying caskets ringed with runes. Barristan knocked one aside. The man fled whining. Rhaegar burst into the throne room. The iron chair shimmered in torch glare. Aerys stood before it, robe stained with excrement, nails ragged. Jaime Lannister knelt on first step, hands bound, lip split, sword cast aside. 3 pyromancers surrounded the king, each holding crystal phials humming with sickly light. Aerys turned, eyes moons of milk. So the prodigal returns? He croaked. Too late. I shall be reborn in Dragonfire. Father, Rhaegar said, stepping forward, the realm you burn is your own flesh. Release the city. Let me guide you to rest. Benda. Rest? Treasonous pup. Aerys gestured. A pyromancer handed him a vial. He hurled it. Jaime lunged sideways. The glass exploded against marble, viridian gouts spraying. Barristan flung his cloak, smothering flames. Rhaegar advanced. Father, enough. Wildfire hissed at edges of cloak. He thought of Lyanna's tired smile, Joan's fist grasping his thumb. He thought of Elia waiting. The world hinged on one breath. Aerys shrieked, scrambling toward a brazier. Hand closing around ember iron, he swung at his son. The blow glanced off Rhaegar's pauldron. Sparks flying. Rhaegar dropped Blackfire rather than cut his sire. Grappled instead. One arm pinning wrists, the other steadying frail shoulders. I love you, he whispered, but I will not watch you destroy us. Aerys thrashed, spittle flecking. His strength bled away like sand. Rhaegar eased him to floor. Maester, he called. Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled from shadows, eyes shimmering with what might be relief, might be calculation. He knelt, pressed fingers to Aerys's throat. Fever, he murmured. Wits undone. He prepared dream wine. Jaime wrenched free of bonds, retrieved sword, but Barristan's hand on his shoulder stilled him. Your oath, the older knight reminded. Jaime straightened. Shame and gratitude mingling. Rhaegar faced the pyromancers. Quell every brazier now. Seal the wildfire. Any who refuse stand guilty of regicide and treason. The alchemists hesitated till Barristan stepped forward, sword bared. They bowed and scurried. Outside bells clanged, Tywin's men scaling walls. Inside gold cloaks rushed to secure gates. Chaos throbbed, yet amidst it, a fragile nucleus of order formed. Rhaegar seated upon a plain oak chair at the foot of the throne, issuing commands with calm clarity, while maesters tended the fallen king. Jaime pledged renewed loyalty, though his eyes hinted scars not visible. Pycelle drafted writs relieving the alchemists of royal favor. Varys materialized, spoke silk words about stanching rumor, offered hidden tunnels for wildfire storage removal. Rhaegar accepted each service but marked every face. Friend? Foe? Uncertain. By night, Tywin's army occupied the city without bloodshed. Lannister banners flapped above gates. Rhaegar met Tywin in the small council chamber where maps still smelled of smoke. You saved King's Landing, Rhaegar acknowledged. Name your reward within reason. Tywin's smile was razor thin. My daughter has long admired your grace. Rhaegar's pulse stilled. He recalled Elia, fragile but luminous. Lyanna, fierce as dawn. Yet alliances. Peace. Princess Elia yet lives and remains my wife, he said. Of course, Tywin allowed. But marriages grow frail when heirs are secured and love strays. I ask only that Cersei serve as lady-in-waiting to Queen Elia. His eyes spoke volumes. So begins the dance. Rhaegar nodded once. So be it. For now. Exhaustion crashed after Tywin departed. Rhaegar paced a balcony overlooking the city. No emerald mists rising, only ordinary hearth fires. A hush deeper than midnight reigned as if the metropolis exhaled relief. Blackfire rested against rail, its ripples reflecting starlight instead of flame. Behind him, Jaime approached. "I feared I'd be forced to choose between oath and conscience," he confessed. "I'm glad you arrived." "Your battle is not done," Rhaegar said, eyes on dark alleys. "Guard the king. One day perhaps he may heal, if not." He did not finish. The future would judge. That future churned beyond horizons, where Ned led Lyanna's litter through riverlands, alive with rumor. Stannis still held Storm's End, despite Tyrell's siege. Lysa Arryn mourned her lord, vowing to carve vengeance for her son in Aerys stone. North of the wall, winds carried whispers of walking dead, none believed. Across the narrow sea, orphaned viseries raged in Dragonstone halls, spitting envy at a brother elevated to near king. And in Winterfell's Godswood, ravens awaited tidings that would challenge every vow house Stark had sworn. But for one night, the capital slept unscorched, newborn cooed under sable skies, and a prince weighed crowns heavier than iron. He breathed deep, tasting salt from Blackwater Bay, spice from Dorne blowing faint on southern breeze, snow promise lurking in northern air. Somewhere, prophecy hummed like a plucked harp string, vibrating through marrow and stone. He turned from the parapet, reclaimed Blackfire, and strode back into torchlight, carrying a realm precarious yet unbroken upon shoulders honed by both music and steel. Oh! The moon rode low and swollen above the marshes of the neck, a copper coin cast upon black water. Ned Stark guided his garron along the narrow causeway, hooves sloshing through half-frozen bog. Frost rimed the sedges, for they had ridden north long enough that breath smoked like hearth flames, and the night crooned with half-remembered hints of snow. Behind him the columns stretched in twilight silhouette. Lyanna borne in a wicker litter that swayed between two sturdy northern ponies, Howland Reed padding lightly at her side like a shadow given shape, Jory Castle and Wellet Manderley sharing quiet jokes for the babe, and 20 gray-cloaked spearmen riding 2 by 2 with eyes alert for crossbows that never loomed. The world seemed emptied of folly. Only the hush of distant frogs and the sigh of cold wind stirred the reeds. Inside the litter, Lyanna whispered to Jon, bundled at her breast. Milk-sweet murmurs threaded with ache spilled from beneath the wool flaps, but Ned could not quite catch them, only the rhythm of reassurance. He wondered whether she spoke of winter roses or desert towers, of silver princes or mother's lullabies. He wondered whether any words could truly guard a child from the tempests of lords and legends. Yet whenever the litter curtain shifted, he glimpsed her face and found it fierce, unwavering, luminous with purpose. The fever had eased thanks to Maester Marwyn's herbs. Color warmed her cheeks again, and each time Jon rooted and suckled, his tiny fists unfurled like soft-petaled flowers. They crossed the causeway stones not long past midnight, and made camp on a low hummock of dry moss, while pale starlight winked on stagnant pools. Howland's kin emerged soundlessly. Crannog men clad in woven cattail, their spears tipped with flint that glimmered green in moonlight, and ringed the camp in silent watch. Ned thanked them, though he knew they would vanish before dawn. By the cook fire, Lyanna cradled Jon and listened while Howland told the old tale of the last greenseer, of leaves that whispered dead tongues in winter wind, of giants who knelt to a child king and pledged the snows to his line. The baby hiccuped and, astonishingly, smiled at the croaking of frogs beyond the fire's edge. That smile struck Ned harder than any mace. There, in the upcurve of an infant's lip, hope rekindled like tinder. When Lyanna finally slept, Ned walked the perimeter beneath dark boughs, where glowworms freckled trunks with shy emerald sparks. He found Howland seated cross-legged on a fallen oak. The Crannog lord's gray eyes reflected starlight and worry both. "He must bear a name the realm will swallow," Ned said. "It cannot be Jon Jaehaerys. Not now." Howland nodded. "Jon Snow, then, till blizzards cease." "I will claim him, my bastard," Ned murmured, throat thick. "Better the lash of gossip Then the headsman soared. Rhaegar swore the parchments might one day speak truth, but parchments burn. Howland drew a pouch from his jerkin and placed it in Ned's palm. Smooth and curiously warm. Within lay 2 smooth river rubies, crimson as heart's blood. "From the ford," he said. "Gifts of prophecy's tide. Keep them for the boy. Someday he may trade bloodstones for iron oaths, or cast them back to the current." Ned closed fingers round the gems. "Stars help us, we choose the gentler road." They broke camp before dawn, slipping past gray-green pools, where hoarfrost crusted leaves like minute diamonds. Benjen and a dozen riders from Mo Kalen met them atop the ridge, where sentinel pines pierced a sunrise the color of dusted embers. Benjen's shout of "Lyanna" cracked Ned's composure. He watched his little brother fling reins aside and vault down the slope, watched Lyanna laugh even as tears tracked her cheeks. Jon stirred at the echoing joy, gurgled, then returned to dreaming. Benjen's eyes widened at sight of him, but he asked no questions, merely wrapped arms about sister and nephew both, the wind lifting his sable cloak like the wings of a dark cherub. 3 days later, the towers of Winterfell breached the horizon. Smoke twined from the great hall's chimneys, carrying the fragrance of boar crackling and pine resin torches. Lyanna's litter halted before the stone bridge that arched above the Wolf's Run. She insisted on walking through the gate herself. Jon tucked in wool within her arms. Old Nan wept openly, grasping at Lyanna's skirts. Maester Luwin blustered with professional worry, though tears glittered behind rims of his spectacles. Rickard's tomb within the crypts throbbed with unspoken weight. Yet for now, the stark courtyard rang with reunion's hammer as stable hands shouted, kennels howled, and the black dire wolf carved in granite seemed to lift its muzzle in silent salute. That evening, while hearth fires battled the encroaching chill, Ned assembled his household in the great hall. He told them Robert Baratheon lay dead at the Trident, that Prince Rhaegar had reconciled with House Stark and spared their banners. He spoke of his father's bones, still to be returned, and of a realm stitched only on the thinnest thread of peace. Last he named Jon Snow, his son by a woman he would not discuss. Gasps rippled. Old Nan clucked. Some ladies exchanged glances, but no one challenged Lord Eddard's word. Winterfell walls absorbed secrets as willingly as they echoed banners, and the North had always prized loyalty above curiosity. Later, Lyanna found Ned beneath the weirwood, its red leaves rattling like faint applause. She pressed foreheads with him. "Thank you," she whispered. "When the long night comes, he'll need you more than songs." The heart tree's face, chiseled eons ago by forgotten hands, watched them bleed unseen tears into cold air. South, the capital roused to another dawn of uneasy truce. Rhaegar sat alone in Maegor's solar, studying letters scattered across an oaken table. Wax seals of Mallister purple, crane white, Ronwood rust, Tyrell green and Dane lilac, dotted parchment in a kaleidoscope of allegiance. Most proclaimed relief. Many demanded recompense. A few seethed with warning. Each bore signatures of men whose levies still sharpened swords. He pressed thumb and forefinger to temples. The Iron Throne, only 50 paces away beyond braided corridors, scraped at his hearing like a constant rasp. Imagined or real, he could not tell. Aerys slept this morning, Maester's draught slugging him to silence. There were moments, slender as candle flame, when Rhaegar missed the father who once bounced a toddler upon his knee and recited lines of Nymeria's 1,000 ships. That father had dwindled like waning moon, leaving a husk full of wildfire and echoing fears. A soft knock. Elia slipped in with measured grace, cloaked in dove-blue samite, her cheeks fuller than when he last kissed her at the Trident's Eve. Behind her tottered Aegon clutching a wooden dragon, followed by Rhaenys humming a Dornish lullaby off-key. Rhaegar rose and swept them into arms. Elia's smile carried both warmth and fragility. "I heard the bells rung thrice this dawn," she said. "For what? A birth in the street of flower sellers?" He replied, brushing hair from Rhaenys' brow. "A baker's wife delivered twins." "Then the city still aspires to rebirth," Elia mused. She set a scroll on the table. Prince Doran sends word from Sunspear. He congratulates you for sparing King's Landing and requests assurances of Aerys' safety. He offers the spear tower at Ghost Hill for convalescence should Maester Pycelle deem the climate beneficial. Rhaegar's mouth twitched. Doran never couches daggers in courtesy. He knows removing Father to Dorne would place him beyond Tywin's reach. And perhaps beyond yours. Blood cannot be exiled, Rhaegar answered. But I will discuss with council at midday. Elia trailed fingers along parchment edges, pausing at her brother's seal. Your council swells. Cersei arrived last evening. Lord Tywin, of course, escorted half the rock within the hour. I had little choice, Rhaegar murmured. When wildfire threatened, I needed his gates. I do not begrudge necessity, Elia said, almost gently. Only beware the interest on debts to lions. As she withdrew with the children, Rhaegar caught her wrist. You are still my queen. I know, she said, dark eyes unreadable. But the realm sees in you many crowns. Choose one, lest they choose for you. None. Across the yard, Cersei Lannister watched from a carved window as Rhaegar and Elia parted. She tucked a curl behind her ear, gold bracelet glinting. The red keep mirrored the rock in stone, yet its corridors thrummed with possibilities seldom glimpsed in her father's stern domain. She had walked them an hour now, mapping alcoves and listening to the hush of velvet secrets. Jaime's absence gnawed. He stood vigil over Aerys, as he ever did. But her own path would not hinge on Twin's shadow. She descended to the nursery with a tray of sweet milk cakes. Septa Lemore fussed until Cersei flashed a smile sugared with innocence. For the little prince and princess. Rhaenys accepted a cake and promptly smeared honey across her cheeks. Aegon gurgled, banging his toy dragon. Cersei knelt, dabbing perhaps more than necessary, noting dimples and dark lashes. Children, she mused, were levers waiting for careful hands. Leaving the nursery, she nearly collided with Varys gliding along on powdered slippers. Such devotion to royal offspring. The spider purred. The realm will applaud. Yes, Cersei said, forcing warmth. How fortunate to serve a house so dedicated to its young. Fortune, Varys repeated, tilting his bald head. I find fortunes like doves, need gentle coaxing lest they fly elsewhere. Might I aid in your coaxing, sweet child? If I require your webs, she answered, I shall step into them. The spider's chuckle followed her like perfume. Tywin, meanwhile, convened his own private supper in the Tower of the Hand. Himself, Sir Kevan, Maester Caliot of Casterly Rock, and Lord Giles Rosby coughing quietly at intervals. Roasted heron cooled untouched, while Tywin reviewed barley tallies from the Reach and loan ledgers from Bravos. Storm's End still holds, Kevan said between sips of watered wine. Mace Tyrell boasts daily, but Stannis refuses parley. Bastards of the Baratheon line persist through Stannis' iron, Tywin replied. If we feign lenience, we invite future rebellion. Prince Rhaegar sent ravens promising safe passage and titles of lesser rank. A promise that buys loyalty at the expense of fear, Tywin snapped, folding the parchment. Let the prince distribute pardons. Lions dispense judicious claws. Then? Kevan glanced toward the draped doorway. And if the prince balks? Then the realm shall learn that regents may ascend when dragons molt. At Storm's End, mists roiled about crenellations like agitated ghosts. Stannis Baratheon paced the ramparts, oilskin cloak snapping in a gale redolent of brine. The seas below pummeled cliffs with relentless fists. Hunger gnawed, candles rationed. But his garrison still saluted each pass with haggard resolve. Renly appeared, cheeks sunken but eyes bright as ever. A hawk from King's Landing, he said, handing over a scroll sealed with three-headed dragon. Another offer. Stannis slit waxed eye. Rhaegar's script flowed precise as sword cuts. Stannis to be Lord of Storm's End confirmed, Master of Ships, seat on council, debt of grain repaid, and a new weirwood galley commissioned in Robert's honor. In exchange, fealty, surrender of rebel prisoners, recognition of John Connington as Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. Stannis snorted. Connington sitting in Robert's Hall? Over my ashen bones. Yet the realm teeters, Renly said. And we teeter inside it. Look. He gestured to courtyard where boys scarcely strong enough to hold pikes lugged buckets of oat water. We have 4 weeks' grain, 2 of barley, none of onions. Stannis remembered the smuggler Davos Seaworth, and the onions that once saved them during the 9-penny siege. Davos had slipped through blockade that time. Might again if he still lived. Prepare a longboat, Stannis ordered. Someone will run the gauntlet tonight. Who? I, Stannis said. Renly's protest died before his brother's glare. They lowered a skiff beneath moonless sky, waves swallowing it whole. Stannis rowed alone until oars blistered palms raw.p. Dawn found him adrift near a Myrish galley flying Tyrell colors. Captured, he was hauled before Mace Tyrell himself, breakfasting on sugared pears within a pavilion pitched upon a deck broad as a dance hall. Mace's plump cheeks jiggled with surprise. He dabbed jam from his beard. Lord Stannis, this is unexpected. I come to treat, Stannis barked. Send me to the prince. Mace considered. I could take Storm's End, you know, merely awaiting calm seas. I sailed through your calm seas, Stannis said. You waste men and coin for a seat you cannot claim. Parley me. The arrogance unsettled Mace as much as it intrigued. He agreed to ferry Stannis to King's Landing under flag of truce. The small council assembled in the Tower of the Hand was a tapestry of disquiet. Rhaegar presiding in simple black doublet. Tywin armored in dismissive stillness. Varys in perfumed lavender silk. Pycelle wheezing. Jon Connington leaning forward with fists clenched. And Septon Barthold representing the faith. Across the table, Stannis Baratheon stood gaunt yet unbowed, his eyes red-rimmed from salt spray. Rhaegar opened. Lord Stannis, your brother died bravely. His name will not be forgotten. Stannis' voice scraped gravel. Names feed no garrison. Tywin interjected. Nor does obstinacy. Stannis ignored him. I hear you name Connington Lord, our brother's bannerman. Jon proved steadfast when others wavered, Rhaegar said. Yet Storm's End remains yours if fealty is sworn. Fealty. I gave my king Aerys. Stannis retorted. He sought to roast me in wildfire. Prince Rhaegar foiled that. Varys piped. A more gracious liege you will not find. Stannis inhaled long. I offer terms. Connington may have Griffin's Roost and lands south of the Wendwater. Stormlands remain to the Baratheon line. In return I bend the knee and join council. Connington blanched. Tywin's eyes narrowed. Pycelle coughed theatrically. Rhaegar considered. So noted, he said. I will deliberate. After adjournment, Tywin cornered Rhaegar on a colonnade above the inner ward. Yield lands to Baratheon rabble, and you fracture loyalty purchased in blood, he growled. Rhaegar folded arms. Connington desires honor more than acreage. Should he serve as hand once father steps down, Griffin's Roost may overshadow any track. Than sin? Tywin's gaze chilled. And where stands House Lannister's recompense? An open treasury, closed wildfire, and my gratitude. Rhaegar said, for now that must suffice. He strode away. Behind him, Tywin's silence cracked like ice about to split. Night clothed the Red Keep in black silk. Jaime Lannister sat bedside of King Aerys, while twins of Candleflame jittered in draughts from arrow slits. The king's skin sagged parchment thin. Dreamwine slurred his breaths, but could not wholly tranquilize the tremors. Occasionally he muttered, dragons, dragons all. Burn them clean. Jaime dabbed sweat from the royal brow, recalling times he had done the same for children fever-sick in Casterly Rock servant quarters. This, he thought, is no different. Save the dagger of oaths twisting inside his ribs. When midnight bells tolled, Jaime stepped into the corridor to stretch. 2 white shadows materialized. Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower, back from Dorne on fresh-grained mounts. Jaime bowed. The realm hears you prevented wildfire slaughter, Dayne said. You have done honor to the cloak. Jaime frowned. I kept a madman breathing. Your oath was to protect him, Hightower rumbled. Not to kill him before his time. Jaime felt heat flush his cheeks. You left the prince's wife alone in desert, while you swore the same oath. Dane's expression barely shifted. And now she is safe in Winterfell's care. So the rumor says. Jaime pushed off the wall. The city's rumor also says polygamy rides again. How does the Dawn answer that? With silent watch, Dane said. Jaime understood. Swords may parry scandal, but tongues only sharpen on secrecy. In Winterfell's rookery, Maester Luwin sealed a parchment bound for King's Landing. Cordial acknowledgement of Stark's renewed oaths, request for the return of Lord Rickard's bones, confirmation of all northern privileges, and a quiet footnote. Lord Eddard accepts guardianship of a bastard son born during campaign. He debated whether to add the boy's given name, and decided anonymity served better. Ravens flapped into the twilight, wings slicing through air heavy with snow smell. Lyanna watched from the battlements, Jon bundled in arms. She felt the night gather around the castle like furred embrace. Somewhere below in the glass gardens, little Benjen played chase with wolf pups. Servants strung dried garlands between torches. The kitchen smokehouse breathed peppery fragrance. Peace had texture here. Rough stone still warming from sun, straw underfoot, far-off howling that promised continuity beyond tomorrow. Yet, inside her ribs, burnt the ember of responsibility. She pressed lips to Jon's scalp. Little wolf. The wind carries songs of dragons. But remember the earth, the snow, the roots. They will anchor you when flames coax you skyward. Then, in Braavos, beneath the Titan's shadow, a slender galley flying crowned stag colors scraped berth at the purple harbor. Sir Harbert Fell disembarked, clutching a chest of silver to pay the Iron Bank arrears, left by Robert's failed bid. He did not know that Robert's line had ended, save for Stannis and Renly. His sealed orders came from a date prior to Trident. Braavosi clerks accepted the coin without question. Coin spoke, even when tongues lay dead. Farther along the quay, Willem Darry herded Viserys Targaryen, and little Princess Daenerys, aboard a battered cog, bound for Tyrosh. Willem carried only a faded Targaryen banner and a bag of Citadel scrolls. Behind them, mist on the mirror-bright sea hid the uncertain path of exile. Viserys looked back once, eyes wet diamonds. One day, he vowed, I will return with dragons of my own. Daenerys, too young to know lament, sucked her thumb and giggled at gulls. Cersei Lannister's mirror in her bedchamber reflected gilt candlelight and restless emerald eyes. She sat brushing hair as Ilyn Payne, the king's new chief gaoler, recited a list of prisoners. She waved him silent halfway. Lords Roland Storm, Dominic Selmy, and the Selsale Miles Mooten all languished in dungeons, awaiting Rhaegar's mercy. She dismissed Ilyn with a purse of silver stags and a promise of future favor. When he departed, she drew parchment. Lines of a letter flowed. My beloved prince, the city dreams of your reign. Yet dangers lurk in every corridor. Know that my heart, and my father's power, stand eager to shield you from those who would twist your kindness to snares. Sign, your humble servant, Cersei of House Lannister. She dusted sand atop ink, considering whether to add a postscript praising Elias' resilience. She decided unnecessary gentility dulled intent. 2 weeks passed. Snowflakes drifted over Winterfell in languid spirals, barely melted by heated stone. Within that breathing hush, Lyanna's strength returned. One crisp dawn she swung into a saddle. Jon snug in a wrap across her chest, and paced the inner yard. Stable boys gawked until she laughed. Ned emerged from the armory, face brightening with rare ease. I could ride to White Harbor and back, she teased. Wait until the maester finishes his linctus. She slowed, voice soft. I am not a bird to cage. I know, Ned said, and met her gaze. But winter cages us all soon. Stay at least till the first spring bud. Their conversation drifted to the heart tree. Between crimson leaves they spoke of father's bones, of a memorial for Brandon, of whether to carve a cairn for Robert somewhere quiet. Lyanna surprised Ned by weeping for Robert. He was more brother than suitor, she confessed. He loved the idea of me, but never listened to the girl beneath the petals. Ned squeezed her hand until grief ebbed. In the capital, early frost silvered the King's Road. Yet inside the red keep the atmosphere simmered. 2 gold cloaks dueled over black market bread, one dying. A pyromancer was discovered siphoning wildfire to personal caches. Whispers claimed the High Septon drafted a declaration condemning bigamy. Rhaegar summoned the Faith's envoy and offered to fund repairs to the Starry Sept in Old Town. The envoy accepted but demanded a trial of Aerys's dabbling in hellish arts. Rhaegar refused. The king's sins, he insisted, would be judged by gods, not altars seeking relevance. Still, he convened a conclave of maesters and lords to discuss regency. After 2 days they agreed. Aerys remained king in title, but day-to-day governance fell to a council of the crown, chaired by Prince Rhaegar, until a great council could confirm. Papers signed, sealed, archived beneath the vaults. That night, in the throne room stripped of wildfire files, Rhaegar stood before the Iron Throne, fingers grazing cold blades. Jaime approached, helm tucked under arm. "Does it feel lighter without your father upon it?" "It will never be light," Rhaegar said. Jaime studied him. "You intend to keep him breathing, so long as there is breath to keep. And if one day he tries again to burn us all." Rhaegar's hand paused on a twisted sword. "Then, I pray, there will be a king's guard steeped enough in mercy to end his torment before the cities." Jaime's jaw tightened. He understood both gift and burden inside those words. Gold-polished steel, violet met emerald, nothing more needed be said. Midwinter's first storm slammed the wall, flinging gales through haunted forest, rattling the frost-fanged peaks. Rangers returned, with tales of white shapes, glimpsed among drifted trees, of silent villages, of a frozen giant found toppled like a felled tower. Lord Commander Corgyle wrote ravens to Winterfell, warning that wildling tribes abandoned their hearths and fled south. He requested men, grain, and warm furs. Ned read the letter by firelight, while John burbled beside a toy carved from weirwood scrap. "Data ni wadis and dare ni, see." Lyanna leaned in, brow furrowed. "The prince must know," she said. "And will," Ned replied. He reached for Quill. Another letter to King's Landing. Request broader levies for the watch. Coin for new garrisons. Yet as he wrote, he wondered whether the crown, still trembling under debt and intrigue, could spare attention for distant ice. In King's Landing the scent of pine and burned cloves heralded the feast of the Mother's Mercy. Minstrels practiced ballads of peace. 1. Rhaegar strode the city incognito, cloak hooded. Barristan, a pace behind disguised as aging sellsword. At Tanner's Row, they found vendors selling wooden dragons, painted silver, and wolves dyed white. Children staged mock battles, where dragon and wolf toy knights joined to defeat a cardboard stag. Rhaegar smiled, then sobered at the sight of beggars still limp with malnourishment. He purchased loaves and dispersed them till coin ran dry. A crone clutching a half-eaten crust pulled his sleeve. "Bright prince," she croaked, though no sign marked him. "Endure the cold, lest the song falter." She pressed into his palm a sprig of blue winter rose. How she conjured it, Rhaegar could not guess. Such blossoms grew only in the snows of the north. Yet its fragrance undeniably sang of Winterfell's glassy ponds, of Lyanna's laughter. He tucked it inside cloak near his heart, and thanked the stranger for reminders that even prophecy required gentle watering. Deep in the dungeons, Ilan Payne escorted Cersei to view prisoners. Torches painted the stone with feverish luster. At the last cell, Dominic Selmy rose, beard bristling. "Lady Lannister?" She studied the knight's weary eyes. "Swear loyalty to the crown's future, and I will speak for your freedom." "My oath already belongs to Selmy blood," he rasped. "Barristan serves the prince. You could stand beside him again. Dominic hesitated. Cersei glimpsed hinge of decision and pressed. Swear by dawn's light tomorrow, and the door opens. She left him gripping bars, soul tilting. Pain locked shackles. On the 15th day of the new year, ravens arrived from Old Town. The conclave declared winter officially begun across Westeros. Courtiers woke to black banners hung beside royal red. One for each day the realm drifted deeper into cold's dominion. Snow twice dusted the streets, swiftly melting against warmer stones, but the omen sank hearts. Grain prices soared. Tywin quietly bought half the Reach's surplus. Stannis, now installed as master of ships, set about auditing every barge and cog. He found rot, theft, and decades of neglect. He spared no tongue, flogging captains who lined pockets. Small folk whispered the king's harbor finally knew a commander sterner than the waves themselves. Connington, Lord Paramount by royal decree, sent emissaries to Stormland's castles urging oaths to dragon and griffin alike. Some complied, others grumbled behind shuttered halls. In Griffin's Roost, Connington himself sat alone reading a letter from Rhaegar, praising steadfast courage. He traced the signature, then closed eyes, memories of Robert's laughter shredding like parchment in rain. Loyalty tasted of tin tonight. Winter deepened. At Winterfell, Lyanna sang Dornish cradle songs near the Godswood Pond, where hot springs kept water steaming. She dipped Jon's toes, he squealed. Benjen carved little wooden ravens for him, each feather etched with surprising artistry. Old Nan told tales of the last hero while embers popped in the hall. One night, Lyanna dreamed of the Tower of Joy. She stood alone among 7 white swords driven into ground like metal saplings. Snow drifted though the desert sky remained blue. Atop the tower, Rhaegar played his harp. The melody fell like tears of crystal. When she woke, she found Jon awake too, staring at the carved direwolf above her bed, as though it might stir to life. Far to the south at Sunspear, Princess Arianne listened to her father Doran read letters. Rhaegar's gratitude, Tywin's overtures, the faith's chiding. When he finished, Arianne plucked a pomegranate and said, "All these lords sew threads into father's tapestry, but we hold a needle of our own." "Yes." Doran sighed, pain flaring in brittle joints. "It is named vengeance. Yet vengeance holds cloth more often than it weaves. A prince's love for my aunt must not eclipse promises broken," Arianne insisted. "Elia still bleeds through us." "She lives," Doran reminded. "And Rhaegar cherishes her." "Cherish," Arianne repeated, tasting the word like bitter rind. Back in King's Landing, Rhaegar awoke to bells pealing frantic. He flung cloak over nightshirt and barreled into corridor. Jaime appeared breathless. "The king? He's gone." Cell doors gaped, 2 guards lay unconscious. Aerys Targaryen had fled into the labyrinth of secret passages once used by Rhaegar. Rhaegar's pulse thundered. Without stopping for boots, he sprinted, Jaime and Barristan clattering behind. They found a hidden door ajar behind tapestry of Baelor's sermon. Inside the narrow crawlspace, a trail of bloody fingerprints streaked along stone. Torch smoke choked air. Alan of the King's Guard, stationed outside father's door, lay alive but bound. He moaned. He spiked the maester's wine. Left muttering about dragon's eggs. Hours passed in frantic search. Finally, near dusk, a stable boy stammered that an old man matching the king's description had commandeered a bay courser and ridden for the dragon pit. By the time Rhaegar and Jaime thundered up the hill of Rhaenys, flames licked cracked dome ribs. Aerys, ragged, brandished a torch before piles of dry straw and ancient dragon skulls. Wildfire vials glittered at his feet. "Stay back," he shrieked. "I wake them. Balerion Rhaegar. Fire cleanses." "Father," Rhaegar pleaded. Voice raw. "Wool. These relics are stone. Let them rest." "No." The torch swayed dangerously close to a cask. "You would steal my throne, my fire. I birth dragons anew." Jaime advanced 1 step. Rhaegar signaled halt. "Let me." He approached, slowly. Hands open. Remember you sang to me as boy, he said. You hummed? The day the dragons came? Sing with me now. He began the melody, soft, wavering. Memory flickered in Aerys' eyes. The torch lowered an inch. Rhaegar kept singing, voice trembling but true. Jaime inched along flank, sword half drawn. Aerys' eyes darted, suspicion rekindling. He hoisted torch again, too late. Jaime lunged, batting torch aside. It skittered across stones, hissed out on damp moss. Aerys slashed a dagger. Jaime caught the arm, twisting. Rhaegar seized the king's shoulders. Father and son grappled amid looming skulls. A vial rolled, shattered, releasing pungent fumes but no spark. Barristan and Luwin stormed in, doused stray embers. At last Aerys collapsed, weeping. Ashes. Only ashes. He pressed bloodied hands to face. Rhaegar knelt, cradling him. Something broke within the prince then. An irreparable fissure between filial piety and the necessities of rule. Back in the Red Keep, a conclave assembled by torchlight. Grand Maester Pycelle pronounced the king unfit, citing hallucinations, self-harm, attempted regicide. High Septon's envoy insisted on holy trial. Tywin pressed for quiet abdication in favor of Rhaegar. Rhaegar rose, voice echoing off stone pillars. I will not depose my father by sword or statute. But for the realm's safety, he must be kept where harm cannot follow. They compromised. Aerys would be confined to Summerhall under guard of 3 Kingsguard, and a host sworn to House Targaryen. The Faith would send Septons to tend his soul. Pycelle would supply drafts to ease torment. Jaime volunteered for escort, but Rhaegar denied him. Another must hold vigil in the city. Dane and Went took the duty. Hightower would remain. Tywin later approached Rhaegar in a shadowed corridor. Mercy may gild a crown, he said, but iron holds it aloft. Rhaegar met the lion's gaze. And mercy, when wielded by iron, is unbreakable. He walked on. Behind, Tywin's lips tightened, assessing this riddle. The snows thickened. Jon's first tooth erupted, to old Nan's delight. Lyanna stitched wolf and dragon standards into a single quilt, each seam a prayer no one else read. Ned dispatched grain wagons to the wall. Reports came of hunters encountering great white shadows in the forest north of Last Hearth. Benjen volunteered for arranging to confirm. Ned agreed only after binding him to return by first thaw. In King's Landing, Rhaegar received Ned's raven describing the shadows. He summoned his maesters, commanded study of ancient archives regarding Long Night. Others, Dragonglass taught. He fingered the blue winter rose sprig, now dried but fiercely fragrant. He thought of the babe under northern skies and the prophecy's murmur. The dragon has 3 heads. One lay in Winterfell, warm against a mother's heart. Another toddled through Dornish gardens. A third crawled across marble floors chasing a wooden lizard. Outside the window, snowflakes tumbled, melting on sill before vanishing. Rhaegar closed his eyes and listened, not to screams of kings or plotting lords, but to a quieter sound, fainter than snowfall. The first notes of a song still unwritten, weaving wolf howls with dragon flame. One day, he vowed, the realm would hear it entire. Until then he must master every discordant instrument. Lion's claw, griffin's pride, stag's echo, viper's hiss, lest the music die unborn. He opened his eyes to torchlight trembling on stone, straightened shoulders, and strode toward the council chamber where destiny rehearsed another verse. Ka. Dawn crawled across King's Landing in bruised streaks of pink and lavender, ushering another brittle morning of frost-limbed tiles and breath that smoked before every passer-by. The capital felt quieter than it had in living memory. No rebel horns, no screams of wildfire, only the subdued thrum of a city half afraid to exhale too loudly. Yet beneath that hush, the realm's blood still raced, complicated as dragon-wrought Valyrian steel. Rhaegar Targaryen rose early, before the kitchens warmed their ovens, before the septons tolled the first bells of prayer. A servant found him standing barefoot on a cold terrace that overlooked the Blackwater, silver hair unbound, a simple black cloak draped about lean shoulders. He did not turn at the servant's approach. He studied the river's sluggish flow as though searching its pewter surface for answers older than kings. At length he whispered a dismissal, voice soft but iron-shod, and the servant retreated without having spoken. Behind him, the Red Keep's halls began to wake. Armor clanked in the courtyard. Maids whispered about new frost on the steps. The stable boys cursed a restive gelding that had bitten one of them in the night. Rhaegar listened to it all, letting each more mundane noise overlay memories of wilder nights. Clash of steel at the trident, Robert's last rattling breath, the crackle of wildfire snuffed only by desperate hands. He pressed palm to the inside of his cloak, feeling the crisp blue winter rose he kept hidden there. Its petals now parchment thin, scent still stubborn. For a moment, Lyanna's laughter drifted back on a wind that touched neither hair nor cloak, and he remembered her promise. The snow remembers every step. He closed his eyes, breathing that promise, before turning back toward the keep. There was counsel to hold, a realm to steer, and a father's madness still to cradle carefully lest it burst like eggshells and drown the city in emerald fire. At Winterfell, real snow had begun to fall in earnest. Fat flakes that drifted lazily at first, then thickened until the air itself seemed stitched of white thread. Lyanna stood on the training terrace wrapped in a bear fur cloak and watched the flakes swirl into Jon's dark hair where he rode Benjen's shoulders like a prince astride a giant. The child squealed whenever wind gusted, face ruddy above wolf-embroidered mittens. Benjen galloped twice around the yard, arrowing past kennel hounds who barked in delight. Lyanna laughed, pressing gloved hands over her lips to warm them. Ned emerged from the armory door, pulling his own cloak tight. The snowfall muffled footfalls so much that Lyanna only sensed him when he reached her elbow. "He has no fear," Ned said, nodding toward the weaving pair. "Not yet. He will learn caution soon enough," Lyanna answered. "I fear you and I have taught him a world of tighter corners than he deserves." She tilted her head to meet Ned's eyes. "Has the raven come?" "Not today." Ned's tone bore a weight she recognized, some tidings withheld to preserve a gentler moment. She nudged his arm. "Tell me." He sighed. Maester Luwin's connection at Castle Black sent word by Shadowcat Runner. They found the bodies of 3 wildlings north of the Shivering Wood, flesh pale as skimmed milk, eyes burnt blue. Lyanna's mirth faded. "Blue?" So Corgyle wrote. Ned's breath clouded. They burned the corpses and posted 8 rangers to watch, but the old stories say fire is only the first defense. She finished. Ned nodded. "Benjen is determined to ride with Will Glover's ranging when the snows lighten. I've given him leave, but I worry." "Mendersau, you always worry." She chided gently, though fear stirred in her chest too. She slid a hand through Jon's hair as Benjen slowed beside her. "Your uncle will return, little wolf. He always does." Jon, 9 moons old, burbled a sound that might have been "Bah." Benjen grinned, adjusting the boy's seat. "Rides better than some squires I've known," he announced. A gust tossed snow across Lyanna's cheeks. Sharp as shards of blossom petals, it reminded her of the Tower of Joy's white stones and the hush before her son's first cry. An ache, half longing, half dread, tightened behind her ribs. Far south, at Sunspear, Princess Arianne watched 2 fire dancers swirl in the Shadow Garden's courtyard. Their blades carved spinning rings of flame that hissed and cracked in the cool desert dusk. Yet Arianne's thoughts fixed on cold northern snow rather than the heat before her. She clutched a letter from her uncle Oberyn, newly arrived by Raven. News of his plan to slip across the narrow sea, gather whispers in Pennos, and weigh the potency of a sellsword company, rumored to still honor a Blackfire dream. Arianne read the postscript thrice. Elia weak but recovering. Rhaegar steady, but the realm's lions sharpen claws. Remain patient. Patient. She tasted the word like sand between teeth. Her aunt lived, yet her aunt's future, her children's futures, hung on a tapestry woven by strangers, a Lannister's ambition, a Northman's secrecy, a crown prince's divided heart. Arianne understood threads. Pull one, and the weave changes shape forever. She studied the dancers again, noting how each swaying step brought flame perilously close to bare skin without ever touching. Balance, precision, and nerve. She would learn all three. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister dispensed with dancers. He sat behind an onyx-inlaid desk reading a report from his master of horse at Casterly Rock. Mining profits up, but silver coins still hemorrhaged into crown projects. Gilded pages flapped in the draft from a hearth kept deliberately low. Tywin's eyes flicked to each line, ticking silently. Opposite him, Cersei stood, restless. You summon me, father. Tywin placed Quill aside. You will accompany me to Dragonstone in a fortnight. We deliver relief grain, inspect the garrison, and remind Rhaegar whose ships keep that island fed. Menausa. Cersei's brows rose. You believe Dragonstone wavers? Dragonstone is where Rhaegar keeps his oldest mysteries, he murmured. If there is a lever to be found, it may sit hidden among its citadel halls, eggs, relics, or blood. You will walk those corridors and see what songs its maesters hum. She let silence linger, then dipped her head. As you wish. And if Queen Elia travels, then you will comfort her, Tywin said. The flicker of candlelight lit his eyes like twin coins. A lioness may purr even while she sharpens claws. Cersei's lips curved slightly. I shall bring the whetstone then. Rhaegar's council convened in the Queen's ballroom that afternoon, for the usual chamber still stank faintly of green fire despite exhaustive scrubbing. Stannis Baratheon arrived first, cloak dripping from drizzle outside, bearing a sheaf of praeses recounting harbor tariffs and the progress of a new shipyard scheme. Connington followed, a step slower, his fine doublet stiff from tension. Grand Maester Pycelle waddled in last. Cheeks flushed. The climb up marble stairs made him wheeze, earning Stannis' habitual scowl. Rhaegar entered alone, Blackfire at his hip, his aspect solemn. He nodded greetings but was swift to business. I will ride for Dragonstone in 15 days, he announced, voice carrying across vaulted space. There are archives I must consult, and other matters. In my absence, we must speak clearly about the lines of rule. The Regency Council can govern, Connington said. You need not name one voice acting hand. Yet one voice simplifies, Tywin Lannister countered, stepping through a side door unannounced. All turned. Tywin removed his gloves with deliberate calm. Too many voices breed cacophony. Appoint a strong hand and bind the lesser tongues. He looked to Stannis. Rhaegar's violet eyes remained unreadable. I have considered. He met each man's stare in turn. Lord Stannis will serve as hand during my voyage. His diligence is beyond question. Bengand. Connington blinked, disappointment flickering. Tywin's face tightened only softly, but the subtle shift of jaw muscle spoke volumes. Stannis bowed once, stiff as a pike. I will do my duty, he said, and the room believed him. Lord Tywin, Rhaegar continued, will accompany me. The Rock's coffers funded the royal fleet's refit. It is fitting you see its progress. Nendosat. It was deft. Remove Tywin from capital intrigues, elevate Stannis to ensure Stormland's loyalty, and keep Connington's pride unscratched by promising a different role. Commander of the City Watch, perhaps. Tywin's eyes narrowed, but he inclined his head. As you say, Your Highness. Rhaegar shifted topics, discussing winter preparations, northern requests for grain, and Pycelle's suggestion that new healers' posts be funded in war-ravaged towns. They argued an hour over coin, but the shape of the future hung not on copper but on hearts. Stannis' iron vow, Tywin's thwarted maneuver. Connington's muttered acceptance. That night, Cersei slipped through a servants' corridor that led toward the guest suites. She wore a cloak dyed a shade too dark to be called Lannister red, and a scent of crushed jasmine disguised the usual perfume beloved by court. Torchlight flickered as she hesitated before a door guarded by one gold cloak. She tipped his chin with a single coin. He stepped aside. Inside, the chamber smelled of warm parchment and Dornish wine. Rhaegar stood before a hearth, reading by fire glow. He did not raise his eyes. "Lady Cersei," he said, voice calm. She let the cloak drop, revealing a gown of pale green that caught every golden strand of her hair. "I thought you might wish lighter company after such a day." He turned a page. "The day does not feel heavy enough to risk shadows." She moved closer, trailing fingers along a table. "You place much trust in stern men." "Stannis, Selmy, even my brother. Whole realms have been lost to stone hearts. Now." Rhaegar finally looked at her. The look was not unkind but remote, as though he saw through her to some vision unshared. "You mistake iron for stone. I require both. And I trust loyalty before laughter." "Loyalty to whom?" she asked, voice silk soft but barbed. "Your queen, your northern paramour, your father, your prophecy." The question hovered like ash. He shut the book. "Loyalty to the realm." Her smile hardened. "The realm is but a quilt of needy tongues. Better to wrap oneself in velvet doughty." She stepped nearer, but something in his gaze stopped her an arm's length away. No threat, simply impenetrable sadness. "Good night, Lady Cersei," he said, opening the door. She held the silence a heartbeat longer, then inclined her head, retrieving her cloak. As she brushed past, she whispered, "Velvet phrase. Never forget." Rhaegar shut the door gently. He returned to the hearth, lifted the book. An ancient treatise on wildfire's alchemical mimicry of dragon flame, and traced a finger beneath a line reading, "Where true dragon's breath fails, man's green fire serves but devours both friend and foe alike." He closed it, walked to the window, and stared across the city rooftops toward the east where clouds shrouded Dragonstone's distant silhouette. On a wind-swept battlement at Storm's End, Renly Baratheon pondered letters of his own. The first, from King's Landing, invited him to the capital to renew bonds of fellowship. The second, penned in Stannis' blunt script, ordered him to remain and oversee the fortress until winter's height passed. Renly flicked the first into a brazier, watching flames curl the parchment. He folded the second into his cloak. "Sorry, brother," he murmured. "But my fellowship is better served where hunts and wines are rich." He turned to Sir Loras Tyrell standing nearby, cloak lined with gold satin. "King's Landing in spring," Renly mused. "The realm will hold tourneys again, an excuse to celebrate peace." "Will the Knight of Flowers ride?" "I ride where the wind blows rose petals," Loras replied with a small smile. "And where my Lord Heart bids." "Then pack extra cloaks," Renly said, clapping him on the shoulder. "The capital will need color amidst its ashes." Winter's chill touched the sea as well. On a hired Myrish cog, Willem Darry held little denaries against the ship's rail, showing her moon-dappled waves. Viserys paced the deck, ranting of dragons and wrongs. Each city they touched sparked new demands. More coin, finer clothes, a sharper sword. Willem placated him with promises of eventual support. "The prince will write, you will see," while hoarding silver for a desperate plan of his own. Runestone rumored the Golden Company might still honor Blackfire descendants. But what of true dragons? Willem wrote a letter for Rhaegar, sealed in red wax, though he lacked address. Someday, he told himself, the tides would bring them back. In the Riverlands, Lord Hoster Tully's cough echoed off River Run's bedchamber walls, each ragged bark drawing a wince from his daughter Catelyn. She dabbed his brow, exchanging weary glances with Maester Vyman. Though the rebellion had ended without her marrying Brandon Stark, she was still unwed and older now than most maids. Her father spoke between spasms. "Cat, my heart, we must still join. Strong north. Rest, father." She soothed, but he gripped her wrist with surprising strength. Write to Eddard. Propose. Alliance anew. Catelyn thought of the quiet Stark lord she had met only twice. of rumors of a bastard son grown recently in his hall. Duty swirled like cold water about her ankles. At last she nodded. As you wish. Outside, trees bent under snowfall, their bare limbs scribbling uncertain promises against slate sky. At Castle Black, a horn keened 3 mournful notes across the frozen wastes. Rangers returning. Benjen Stark staggered through the gate beneath torch flare, his cloak crusted in hoarfrost, eyes wide with something colder than the air. Brothers swarmed him, pulling the direwolf pelt cloak away to reveal claw marks across his leather jerkin. He could not stop shivering, though no fever traced his brow. Lord Commander Corgyle ushered him to fire, poured strong wine between chattering teeth. "Speak, Benjen." Benjen's voice cracked. "We followed white shadows. Found an abandoned village at Northwater. Tracks. Footprints too small for men. They circled, then vanished. He swallowed. We lost Darien. I heard him scream only once. And your escorts?" Corgyle asked. 6 still live." Benjen closed eyes. 2 others we burned. Their flesh." He broke off, trembling. When the flame touched, skin burst like ice shards. Corgyle exchanged looks with his first ranger. "Write the king. No, the Prince Regent at once. And send a raven to Winterfell. The North must stand ready." In his private thoughts he added, "Perhaps even dragons would not be too many." A fortnight later, the royal party sailed for Dragonstone. Rhaegar stood at prow of the refurbished galley Dawncaller, cloak iron gray, while Tywin remained below reviewing cargo manifests. Barristan Selmy supervised marines, and Grand Maester Pycelle suffered quietly in a hammock, Greenface objecting to the choppy bay daitai. Cersei walked the deck as well, though always at a courteous distance from the prince, her hood hiding observation. Dragonstone's basalt towers appeared like serrated knives against a steel sky. Dark waves battered the island's black sand beaches, spitting foam that gleamed wan under winter sun. Fires burned in braziers on the Sea Dragon Tower when they anchored, and stewards rushed to help them ashore. Rhaegar wasted no time. He led Tywin, Cersei, and Pycelle through twisting passages lined with carved dragon heads, each maw frozen mid-snarl. They passed beneath archways inscribed with Valyrian glyphs until they reached the chamber of the painted table. There, Rhaegar dismissed attendants. One remained, Maester Kelvos, thin and hawk-nosed, guardian of Dragonstone's archives. "Show us the vault," Rhaegar said. Kelvos produced a ring of keys wrought from smoky black glass. He unlocked an iron stud door at the table's rear, revealing a spiral stair descending into volcanic heart. Sulfur smell rose. Torch in hand, Kelvos led them down until walls pulsed with faint warmth. At last, they entered a grotto where 2 stone pedestals stood. On each, a clutch of fossilized dragon eggs, scaled shells deep crimson and dark indigo, veins of gold etched like lightning. Niri Mazdur once spoke of shadow-binding rituals to wake stone. Kelvos murmured. And old Valyria bred dragons by harnessing volcano heat. He gestured to cracks in floor where faint red glows seeped. The sigil chamber channels the island's fires. Tywin's face betrayed nothing, but Cersei's eyes widened as she stepped nearer. Rhaegar halted her with a hand. "They are not toys," he said quietly, and she withdrew, though reluctance lingered in every muscle. Pycelle dabbed a brow. "Even if dragons might be reborn, who could ride them?" "I can," Rhaegar replied softly. "And my children. Perhaps another yet unseen." His thoughts flicked north, but only for a breath. "But I do not seek conquest, Grand Maester. I seek deterrence. A dragon perching above wall might dissuade the long night's servants." Tywin studied him. "You gamble much on fairy tales." "Fairy tales once forged empire," Rhaegar countered. He turned to Kelvos. "Prepare the chamber for a waking ritual." We remain 4 nights. That evening, Tywin cornered Cersei at a window slit overlooking black surf. "Did you see his hands shake?" he asked. Not fear, reverence. He would sacrifice friends for prophecy. Cersei's gaze remained on the sea. Then let the prophecy serve us. A dragon in hand is worth a throne in dream. Dreams burn, he warned. And dragonfire does not discriminate. Keep close. Learn what rites he attempts. But reveal nothing of our interest. The prince must believe we remain skeptics. She nodded slowly, though her mind raced ahead to images of herself, astride a great scaled beast, golden hair whipping in the updraft as entire armies knelt. Back in King's Landing, Stannis Baratheon wore the hand's chain uncomfortably. It felt like manacles forged from parchment and ire. He rose before dawn, inspected docks, then convened a session of the royal court, where he ordered price ceilings on bread to prevent speculative hoarding. Guildmasters grumbled, but Stannis' glare turned protest into mutter. Later he stood on ramparts, while fresh snow dusted rooftops. Lord Giles Rosby arrived coughing, bearing a petition for funds to repair Rosby's western walls. Stannis scanned it and signed, provided Giles contribute half from personal coffers. A lord's duty begins at home, he muttered. Giles bowed, wheezed, and withdrew. That evening, a raven from Castle Black arrived. Stannis read the message thrice, jaw grinding. He summoned Septon Barthold and ordered him to arrange a fast day across the city, praying for the night's watch. We prepare the soul, he said, while the body readies arms. Barthold blinked. Arms, my lord. Steel shipments north at once, and dragon glass, if any still exists in the Targaryen vaults. Stannis strode off, cloak whipping. At Winterfell, Ned received Corgilly's new raven reporting Benjen's return, but also the strange bodies. He frowned, then selected fresh parchment. My brother reports the dead walk. We will send skins of obsidian recently unearthed near Skagos. But there is talk here of burying them in the snow. Better we carve them to arrowheads. He signed and sealed it to the prince. Lyanna found him afterwards standing before the heart tree. You are more ghost than man this week, she said, placing a kiss on his chilled cheek. What haunts now? The cold marches faster than we guessed, he replied. His gaze slid to Jon toddling in the snow with old Nan guiding. I fear prophecy races beside. She stepped closer. Let prophecy chase itself. We have a child to raise. Her gloved hand squeezed his. He managed a thin smile. The first stars prickled above, each one an old sentinel. North of the wall, Benjen Stark returned to the site where Darien had screamed. 6 rangers accompanied him, torches sputtering under sullen sky. They found nothing but snow-choked trees and prints obscured by fresh powder. Yet the prince led inward from 3 directions and did not depart. As night fell, pale blue wisps flickered among trunks like distant lamps. The men tightened their circle. Benjen whispered a silent vow to gods old and new. If I die here, let my kin know the truth. He raised dragonglass dagger, and they pressed deeper into the woods. On Dragonstone's second night, Rhaegar lowered a stone egg into a copper brazier where volcanic vents sighed warm air. Kelvos chanted Valyrian couplets, older than Balerion's wings. Pycelle observed skeptically, quill ready to document. Cersei stood in shadow, arms folded. Tywin watched from behind a pillar, expression unreadable. The brazier sparked, flames turning orange to violet as powders were strewn. Rhaegar's silver hair caught the strange light, making him appear almost spectral. He closed eyes and placed both hands atop the egg. Heat licked his palms, but he did not flinch. Minutes elongated. Sweat beaded on his brow. Then, a faint sound. Not crack, not scream. More subtle, a distant rush of wind through hollows. Pycelle leaned forward. Kelvos' voice rose. Rhaegar's lips parted, whispering something unheard. The egg thrummed. For one heartbeat the scales shimmered brighter, as though embers pulsed beneath shell. Then the light dimmed. The brazier flames guttered back to mundane orange. The egg cooled to inert stone once more. Rhaegar withdrew his hands, flexing them. Kelvos exhaled a disappointed sigh. Cersei's face masked frustration. Tywin stepped closer. A failed gamble, he said, not unkindly but firm. Not failed, Rhaegar murmured. Sleeping. He turned to Kelvos. Tomorrow, we begin earlier. The fire must crest at dawn's promise. Kelvos bowed. Cersei lingered after the others filed out. A man may chase a dream until it devours him, she said softly. Rhaegar wiped sweat from his wrist. Or until it blossoms. Good night, my lady. And now. She departed, but her mind raced, half yearning for his success, half craving to twist it for her own rise. Back at the Red Keep, Jaime Lannister sparred with Gerald Hightower beneath the torchlit practice yard. Ser Boros Blount counted strokes. Jaime's blade rang against the White Bull's heavier greatsword, each clang echoing through vaults. Sweat flew from hair. At length, Hightower knocked Jaime's sword aside and caught him with a mailed fist to the pauldron. Jaime grunted, breathless. Faster, Hightower advised. War seldom grants second strokes. Jaime picked up his sword, nodding. War also seldom grants men like you to train under. He fell into stance again. But his mind drifted. To his sister's secretive glances, to Rhaegar's fragile, haunted gaze, to Aerys' weeping eyes as the carriage bore him south to Summerhall. Jaime still stood sentinel. But which throne, which vow, truly commanded him? South at Summerhall's ruins, Arthur Dayne kept watch. The castle stood half rebuilt under royal coin, stone skeletons revived against crown's shame. Aerys occupied the solar sealed with barred windows. Dayne paced the courtyard at dusk, dawn strapped across his back. Within, the king scrawled feverish prophecy across scraps of parchment, repeating a single phrase: rebirth in flame, rebirth in flame. When servants brought food, he ignored it until Dayne coaxed him to sip broth. The famed sword of the morning felt weariness deeper than any campaign. Guarding a mad king proved harder than slaying a sane foe. One night, Aerys seized Dayne's wrist with surprising strength. "Do you think him loyal?" the king hissed. "He sings for wolves." Dayne held the aged fingers gently. "The prince loves his father." Aerys's eyes flared. "He loves the crown." "He stole my fire." He sank back, murmuring. Dayne watched him drift into restless sleep. Outside, crickets chirred. The sword at Dayne's back grew heavy. Dragonstone's dawn came storm-lashed. Lightning forked across black clouds, thunder shaking castle foundations. At first light, Rhaegar resumed the ritual. Pycelle protested the howling wind. Tywin insisted on a timing delay for safety. But the princes will loom taller than weather. This time, he knelt alone before all three eggs arrayed in a triangular brazier. Maester Kelvos sprinkled ruby ground powder, a single ruby, one of those Ned had given. Rhaegar produced and placed beside the central egg. Flames roared violet crimson. He began to sing, a low, mournful note that built in slow ascent. It was an old Valyrian lullaby, half lost to time. Lightning flashed through the cracked ceiling, illuminating him and the eggs in ghostly intervals. Cersei watched from a balcony, hands gripping rail. Tywin observed but forbade expression. The central egg pulsed again, but stronger. Scales shifted subtly, as if something inside stretched. An audible crack spider-webbed across its surface. Rhaegar's song wavered into wordless hum. Another crack, brighter. A puff of smoke. Pycelle gasped. Kelvos shouted a prayer. Yet thunder boomed, and the brazier's supports, weakened by sudden expansion of flame, wrenched. The structure pitched. Rhaegar lunged, arms wrapping the egg a heartbeat before brazier toppled. Violet fire spilled across floor, licking stone. Guard rushed forward, stamping cloaks to smother. The other eggs tumbled onto cool stone and fell silent. Rhaegar sat amid smoke, clutching the central egg to his chest. It no longer pulsed. Cracks remained, but no further movement came from within. He closed eyes, shoulders sagging. Tywin stepped to his side, extended a hand. "Enough." Rhaegar nodded, rose slowly. "Enough. For now." He placed the egg carefully on an iron stand. But a dragon stirred. "I felt it breathe." "Dreams breathe," Tywin said. "Dragons, not yet." Cersei remained on balcony, her eyes fixed on the cracked shell. A promise or a warning she could not read. Stannis spent the same dawn in the capital's crypt cold Raven Tower, sorting messages by candlelight. A scroll sealed in black wax from the wall lay open on the table. He read Corgyle's urgent plea, then donned cloak and strode down spiral steps toward the dungeons. He found Ilyn Payne overseeing the forge where excess swords were melted into plowshares. "The king's taxes take steel from men's hands," Payne said with silent leer. "I need steel back," Stannis snapped. "Enough for 200 blades, pattern welded to hold an edge in night's cold." Payne frowned but bowed. Stannis turned, icy purpose girding him. On Dragonstone's final night, Tywin conferred privately with Grand Maester Pycelle. "The prince's obsession threatens realm stability," Tywin said. "What doses might calm such fervor?" Pycelle wrung thin hands. "Milk of the poppy in moderate measure can soothe, but too much clouds judgment dangerously. Keep measure ready," Tywin ordered. "Should his visions lead him too close to ruin, we must preserve him from himself." Pycelle bowed, though his eyes betrayed worry. Tywin cured peace might mean Tywin ruled throne. Rhaegar sailed back to King's Landing with dragon eggs secured in iron-bound crates. He spent most of the voyage atop the forecastle playing harp. Notes drifted across water like forlorn gull cries. Cersei listened unseen, heart tugged by music she could not command. Upon docking, Stannis greeted them with news of Wall's problems and northern concerns. Tywin seized the moment. "Wild stories. The Watch has cried shadows for centuries. It cries now with evidence," Stannis said, producing a dragonglass arrowhead and a scrap of blackened bone. Rhaegar examined both, expression brutal with thought. "We must help," he declared. "I will petition Dorne for sandsteeds to haul grain east of the mountains, call banners to refurbish Moat Cailin as muster point, and dispatch rangers of my own." Tywin frowned. "Banners already weary. Winter drains granaries. Best to wait until spring to dew and tea." "No," Rhaegar countered. "Night waits for no season." He turned to Stannis. "Send word to Lord Stark. Summon him to court with his sister to discuss northern defense. And keep this quiet." Stannis nodded. Satisfaction muted but real. Tywin's jaw shifted. In Winterfell, a raven arrived bearing the royal summons. Ned read it beneath the roaring hearth while Jon crawled at his foot, gnawing a carved stag. Lyanna sat opposite, hands stilling on her embroidery. "The capital," she breathed. "And sooner than we guessed," Ned said. "The prince requests we journey before midwinter deepens. We cannot ride through blizzards with a babe," she protested softly, yet hope flickered. Letters were one thing. To stand before Rhaegar again might stitch loose seams of fear and longing. "We could sail from White Harbor," Ned suggested. "Ships still brave winter seas, though the Mander swells with ice." She bit her lip. "What of rumors? Court will buzz like hornets." "Buzzing ends when truth stands plain." He reached across the table, covering her hand. "If we ride together. Wolves do not scatter in snow." Benjen entered, face stark. "The Watch needs northern strength. I leave again in 3 days." Ned told him of the summons. Benjen frowned. "The North cannot spare both of us." "I will travel. You will hold Winterfell," Ned decided. "Lyanna and the child must remain warm until roads thaw." But Lyanna shook her head. "The prophecy claims Jon too. If council forms for northern defense, he belongs in that hall as much as any lords." They argued past midnight until the embers dimmed, yet the outcome was foregone. When morning dawned, preparations began. Wagons loaded with furs, dried meat, ironwood coffers, guards chosen for loyalty and silence. Lyanna wrote a short letter to Rhaegar. 4 lines ending with a single pressed blue rose petal. She asked Maester Luwin to choose the bird. A deerwing, swiftest in the rookery. It vanished into snow-cloud sky, wing beats soft as sighs. As winter's clasp tightened, lords across Westeros watched the uncertain horizon. In the Vale, 10-year-old Robert Arryn sneezed incessantly, while his mother Lysa read a raven from the capital. Invitation to present the young lord to court for reassurance of House Aaron's loyalty. Lysa burned the letter, fearing poisons. At Highgarden, Mace Tyrell arranged early spring tourneys, more concerned with spectacle than winter. His mother Olenna sniffed and dispatched her own ravens, weaving information webs sharper than any rosethorn. In the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy eyed the mainland's weakness with rising hunger. His priests sang of drowned gods claiming iced rivers. And on Dragonstone, in the silent vault, cracks across the red-black egg widened imperceptibly each day, though the chamber lay abandoned. No flames licked it now. Yet within the shell a faint pulse echoed. Patient, powerful, alive. King's Landing prepared for the Great Snowmoot. A council of northern, crownlands, and faith leaders set for midwinter's heart. A slow hush of flurries dusted the city, and small folk huddled near braziers carved from broken trebuchets. But the hush could not mute everything. In Flea Bottom, a man with a burn-scarred jaw whispered to any sellsword eager for coin. Wildfire casks waited still beneath the hill of Rhaenys, guarded by fools. Vials to be pilfered fetched dwarf treasure. A few listened, greed flames bright. On a moonless night, 3 cutpurses crept into tunnels that once warmed dragon hatchlings. They never returned, but the tremor of a muted blast rolled through stone foundations and rattled goblets in Maester Pycelle's study. He scribbled a note to Rhaegar at once. In the throne room, Jaime felt the floor shiver beneath boots and pressed hand to sword. Memories of near conflagration, as fresh as yesterday's wound. 1 week later, the Stark caravan crested the King's Road south of the Neck. Pennants snapped, gray direwolf, but smaller banners of green lily for Howland Reed, yellow sunburst for House Glover escort. Lyanna rode beside Ned, bundled in sable. Jon swaddled beneath her cloak. Snow tapered when they entered the Riverlands. At the Blue Fork fords, Edmure Tully met them with fresh mounts and laughter loud enough to echo off ice-coated reeds. That night, Lyanna walked Riverrun's battlements alone. The water below flowed black, shards of starlight floating. Footsteps approached. Edmure offered mulled wine. They spoke of childhood games, of Brandon's wild hopes, of death. She asked if Catelyn truly wrote again to Ned. Edmure shifted, uneasy. He admitted his sister still longed for alliance. Lyanna thanked him, but her eyes drifted to Jon's tower window where a candle flickered like a tiny dragon breath. While the Stark party advanced, Rhaegar met with the High Septon beneath colored glass depicting the god's creation. The Septon demanded clarity. Rumors of polygamy, of hidden bastards, of dragons hatching. Rhaegar listened, then knelt before him. "I ask your blessing on the summit to protect the living from the darkness beyond my father's sins," he said. "Measure me by deeds, not rumors." The old man placed trembling hand on silver hair. "If you defend the realm's children, the 7 watch." Yet he warned that bigamy could not stand unchallenged. Rhaegar rose, disturbed. He realized the truth would out before long. He must forge law to meet prophecy, or prophecy would wreck law. Cersei learned of Lyanna's approach through Varys' delicate persimmon note. She shattered a mirror in private fury. "Wolf comes south in snow. Should have stayed buried," she spat. Her maids pretended deafness. That evening, she dined with Elia, presenting a necklace of winter diamonds. "For the Queen of Gentle Snows." Elia admired it, though weariness dulled her glow. She asked after Cersei's upcoming charity for cold orphans. Cersei promised blankets, but in her thoughts, she stitched blankets into nets. If the wolf arrived with child, tongues would wag. If they wagged enough, dragons might turn on one another. When the Stark column entered King's Landing, it did so not beneath cheers but watchful silence. Snowflakes, rare in the south, drifted onto cobbles. Rhaegar met them at the Red Keep gate wearing a plain wool cloak, no crown. Barristan at his side greeted Ned with a crisp salute. The twin gates groaned open. Lyanna dismounted, knees stiff from ride. Jon slept against her breast. She saw Elia waiting on the stairs, a vision of calm fragility, Aegon and Rhaenys clasping her hands. For an instant, terror gripped Lyanna. 2 queens, 1 prophecy. But Elia stepped forward first, eyes warm. "The North is welcome." She brushed a trembling finger across Jon's cheek. "He looks strong." Rhaegar's gaze held both women, filled with gratitude and apprehension. He gestured Lord Stark forward. "Come. The moot begins at dawn. Tonight, warm yourselves in my home." Within the great hall, courtiers whispered. Cersei watched from an alcove, nails digging palms. Tywin's eyes catalogued every subtlety. The way Rhaegar's hand lingered on Lyanna's elbow. The way Elaya's shoulders remained strong. The way Ned Stark's jaw set as if he might face the entire court with sword alone. Jaime approached Cersei, voice low. "They look like a family. Then we remind them families bleed." She hissed back, melting into crowd before he could answer. Night blanketed the keep. Rhaegar asked Ned and Lyanna to join him in the small council solar, fire crackling behind high-backed chairs. Elia arrived as well, carrying sleeping Rhaenys. Aegon toddled beside, clutching a wolf carved from whitewood, a gift from Lyanna moments before. Rhaegar spoke first. "I would bind wolf and dragon openly. Jon must be acknowledged." Ned stiffened. Westeros has not known more than one queen since Aegon the Unworthy's days. The faith will rebel. Then we change the faith, Rhaegar said quietly, determination glowing. Once dragons hatch anew, miracles breed obedience. Lyanna shifted, voice raw. "You would risk realm war to crown a child not yet weaned?" "To save realm from darkness," Rhaegar replied. "The others come. We must stand united beneath prophecy." Elia touched his arm. "Unity may require patience. Let Jon grow here, as ward, not heir. Let the faith see love before law. Otherwise they see only sin." Silence held. Rhaegar rubbed brow. "Perhaps a compromise. Jon raised as foster son to the crown until he comes of age. Then a great council to decide succession. And now," Ned exhaled. "Foster son, not bastard. The North can accept." He looked to Lyanna, who nodded slowly, eyes bright. They rose, hands clasped in tenuous pact. Outside, wind rattled window panes like fingers of the dead. 3 corridors away, Cersei poured a vial of clear liquid into Queen Elia's wine flagon. She hesitated, remembering the soft kindness in Elia's gaze earlier. For half a breath, she considered stopping, but she heard her father's voice. A lioness may purr even while she sharpens claws. And she thought of Lyanna's arrival, of Jon's sleeping face, of the crack in the dragon egg that did not belong to her. She tipped the vial fully, swirled the wine, and walked away. A tear slid down her cheek, lost among the velvet dark. Morning. Daw. Trumpets blared across frost-silvered tiles. Lords filed into the great hall. Banners of sun, rose, trident, fish, kraken, falcon, and griffin mingling with dragon and direwolf. The air smelled of cedar boughs and anticipation. Rhaegar sat the Iron Throne, only for ceremony, not rule. Yet the sight stilled hearts. To his right, Hand Stannis. To his left, Prince Aegon upon a miniature throne. Elia and Lyanna shared a dais below, toddlers on laps. Courtiers gaped. A queen and a northern lady side by side, defied every whisper yet validated them all. Ned Stark stood before the throne and declared Castle Black's pleas. Maester Pycelle displayed dragonglass arrowheads. A hush fell like snowfall. Rhaegar's voice carried. "This council unites for the defense of all realms of men. Henceforth, grain tithe and steel levy shall travel north each moon's turn. Lords who shirk this duty forfeit crown protection." "Ben?" Murmurs erupted. Tywin raised brow but did not object. His Reach allies frowned into sleeves. Rhaegar continued. "Jon of Winterfell will foster here, binding the north to the dragon's wing. When he comes of age, this council shall reconvene." He lifted a sealing knife. "Let blood bind the pact." He pricked his thumb, then Ned's. They let drops mingle in a shallow silver bowl. Septon Barthold sprinkled holy water. Some gasped, some clapped. From the back, Cersei watched Elia sip from a goblet. Moments later, the queen's hand trembled. She set the goblet down. Cersei felt her pulse throb, guilt gnawing. But Elia smiled softly at Lyanna, and lifted Rhaenys to wave at the crowd. The wine had done nothing. A servant had replaced her flagon earlier, fearing the chill might sour it. Cersei's poison sat untouched in a sideboard cup, destiny delayed. She swallowed, half in relief, half in fury. That night, in the courtyard garden where lemon trees drooped under nets to protect from frost, Rhaegar and Lyanna walked. Torches flickered. "Are you content?" he asked. "I am wary," she said, "but proud." She held his hand. "Keep our son safe." He smiled, placing her palm over his heart. "I will keep all our children safe, even those not yet born of fire or snow." Above them, a comet's tail flash briefly streaked the wintry sky, so brief most missed it. But Varys saw from an attic window and pondered. And thousands of leagues north, Benjen Stark lifted eyes to the same streak through swirling snow and whispered a prayer to old gods who never answered plainly. Deep below Dragonstone, in the dark vault, the cracked red-black egg rocked once, twice. A sliver of shell snapped free. A tiny claw, black as volcanic glass, probed the cold air. Somewhere far off, within the Red Keep's nursery, baby Jon Snow woke, eyes wide, and let out a piercing cry that startled his wet nurse and echoed through the stone like a herald's trumpet. The realm, holding its breath beneath snow and dreams, did not yet know it. But another dragon had begun to breathe.